And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good middle of the night, wherever you may be. It is Thursday, the 12th of December, 2024. We're nearly at the end of the year. Good gravy. This is Paul English Live here on WBN 324 for the next couple of hours and elsewhere on other assorted streaming networks. Welcome to the show. Here with Patrick. I have a few little opening remarks to make, but Patrick will be joining us imminently. Well, he's actually already here, and maybe a few of the reprobates will be joining us in the early part, maybe the later part of the show. Who knows? Hi everyone and welcome back. As I was saying, it's Thursday again. God, that was a fast week. It really was. Very quick week. And of course, this is possibly, for most of you, a rather slow starting show. I got a very useful piece of information through earlier this week. It turns out that for the entire run here on WBN, I've been speaking too early in the schedule. Can you believe it? It's a terrible thing. Always quite keen, of course, to start talking. So from now on, you will hear me coming at round about 8 or 3, maybe even a little bit later. I'm learning to sort of relax a bit with the sort of timing and all this kind of stuff. So that's the reason why we set things up a little bit earlier, because I just had some new sort of systems to go through. If you are hanging out on Rumble or YouTube, oh boy, what have I done? If you're hanging out there, then the stream started a little bit earlier. In fact, I think I started about 10 minutes to go, a bit sort of like a pre-roll thing or whatever the technical term is. But I have so many little sort of tedious buttons to press at the end, and I'm pretty sure everything's going out cool and dandy right now. I've got no warning messages saying it isn't, so that's great. And so slightly new setup. I was hoping actually today to be able to stream to DLive. So we're picked up on WBN. We also go out on Radio Soapbox. We go out on Free Fall South Africa, I think. We're still going out on that. And we also go out on Rumble, which is kind of the main chat. So if you want to get involved, if you're that kind of a person, if you're that kind of a guy or gal, head on over to the Rumble channel, because we're often looking at those things. Hang on, I've got something stuck in my mouth. Oh, there we go. Can't get it out. It's my tongue. We're often over at Rumble, is where all the chat is, and we will sometimes even read those posts when we can tear ourselves away from the riveting conversation here. So we will do that. So if you want your voice to be heard or your finger typing, to be seen, head on over to Rumble. You'll find the link to that at paulenglishlive.com. We got the links to everything over there. And as I said, I was hoping to go out to Rumble, YouTube, good grief, DLive, and a Telegram channel, and I've actually set something up to that effect. So we've set it up so that we could have done that. However, I didn't actually test that bit before. So although it's all paid for, they've got my bloody money. Although, there we go. There's that thing that was stuck in my mouth. There's a tooth that's come out. Not really, just joking. Although I've paid for the whole thing and it's all set up. When I came to press the magic button of go, it went clear off, Sonny. So what I've done is we're not going out to DLive tonight. I think I mentioned before, I've not really been able to develop much of a huge, vast following on DLive. I've come to that party quite late, but it's brilliant for audio quality, that platform, by the way, and it's actually jolly good. So for now, we're just going out this evening on Rumble and YouTube. And I'm sure some of you are saying, good grief, Paul, have you lost your mind? Why would you go out on YouTube? Well, I've got a very small presence on there. And I thought, well, really, of course, there's vast quantities of people on YouTube. And also, I've put some shows up there and we didn't get any black marks or anything like that. I mean, this is a very civilized sort of show for most of it, of course. So I thought we'd give it a go. And one of the reasons for that is that I was on a show with Eric von Essex, who you know is always a stalwart here. And both Eric and Patrick are in the studio now, so I'm going to bring them in because I want to say a little bit more about YouTube. But good afternoon, good evening, Patrick and Eric. How are you two fine gents this day?
I'm quite good. How about you, Eric?
Mustn't grumble unless you've got 3 hours to spare. And then,
hey, you know what, Eric? We do.
Beautiful weather here.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
Well, actually, it's beautiful weather here. If it wasn't for the thick cloud and chemtrails in between the blue sky and the land, I don't think I've known overcast weather to go on for so long. Have you, Paul?
I don't know, really. I'm trying to think about when the last sunny day was. We did have a belt of good sunny days. The good sunny days were last week, I think. I had some crackers last week. I did. Have you noticed how we always start the show off about weather? Patrick's probably noticed. It's a sort of British thing. We always talk about the weather, don't we? We can't talk about anything else.
We're English, aren't we?
Yeah, well, it's a way of getting warmed up. Yes. I mean, it has been pretty it was pretty nippy today. I've even had to put long trousers on tonight, which is a bit disappointing. But the fact is, I think I mentioned before, I try to get through to... I do. I try to wear shorts to November the 5th, Eric. And Patrick knows this. And I did. But it's been actually quite mild. But today...
Not bad.
Yeah, sort of like that. But we had a lot of fun on Monday, didn't we? So I know this is a bit silly talking about a show that was 3 days ago, but it wasn't really.
Did, yes.
We had a cracking show. I was invited over to join all the reprobates at Fockham Hall on Monday evening, and I was slightly late to the show, to the party, but it was a lot of fun. It really was a great deal of fun, and so it was that. That got me thinking about YouTube. I thought, because they haven't kicked that show off. Not that it was... I don't think we were naughty or anything like that. I mean, we're kind of sensitive as to where a certain line exists, or at least we think we are.
We're slightly naughty.
Yeah, a little. Well, you are always. I mean, you know, so which is fine, which is good, but
it's still there, and
well, it is.
Well, it's still there, and also the copy is on BitChute. So if it is booted off, people still see it on BitChute. So there we go.
No, that's great.
And that's always, I find, a good insurance to have a BitChute account. And I mean, it's entirely up to you, but I think for this show, it might be a good idea to have a BitChute channel. You can't go. I think you can go live now. There is possible you can go live now, but it's always what I call an insurance, because if anything goes wrong here, you can always go over to BitChute. That's it, basically. And it's English based, I believe. It's not American.
I know.
Yeah, I think
it is.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't know where it's based now. It might be the Isle of Man, actually. I think it ended up there for some reason. Yeah. But there's people send me links to things on that which are barred here in the UK. So I just switch on a VPN and pretend to be coming from Chicago. It's so exciting. But you get through that way. So, in fact, if you use the Opera browser, which I do, I mean, I use 2 or 3 actually, but Opera and Brave are my sort of go-to browsers for most things. Opera actually comes with its own inbuilt VPN for nothing, for nout. So you just switch it on and you choose where you would like to pretend to be coming from. I usually choose America because most things work that way. And then generally BitChute will load everything up for you because obviously the English are too sort of retarded and stupid to actually watch these videos, but the Americans are very sophisticated and intelligent and wise and can watch them. So I pretend to be an American, which I'm sure, Patrick, you're quite pleased about, possibly. Maybe not.
I don't know, Paul. Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to, although this show's not a... Sorry.
When you come to think about it, what I was going to say is when you come to think about it, if they've moved to the Isle of Man must be a long way from the Virgin Islands, mustn't it? When you come to think about it. So anyway, just a little thought there.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's quite a way. And what I wanted to mention, this is a bit odd, but one of the things that we ended up, actually we talked about so many things on Monday, and I've been thinking about a lot of things and doing a bit more reading on some other stuff, not even related to the show. Yeah. But I did have I've had an odd little thing. In fact, I think I've posted it to you, Eric, about it, with putting comments up on YouTube. And I've tried to put 2 comments up, and they've both been kicked off. Now, I'm not crying about it. I just actually don't understand why. They're not even particularly unpleasant. I don't think they are. I don't write unpleasant things anyway. I understand where pretty much where the line is, so it's a bit odd. But after the show on Monday, somebody with the handle of May Ketty put a post on a comment underneath the show. And it's quite a good comment. And I wanted to reply to it. So if you get to hear this, I think he's Tony. I think that's it, but it's spelled Toeknee on his YouTube thing. So hi, Tony. If you get to hear this, I just wanted to actually answer this. We might as well do it now because I've just got it up on the screen. I wanted to answer your comment, and this is going back into this scriptural stuff. So we're starting off actually with the meaty stuff here, but we'll move into other things as well. We can always keep floating around and coming back to this. But I was talking about this on Monday, and I've talked about it here before. We've had discussions about this, about the idea that Scripture is a contract, and therefore there are parties to it, and therefore that means exclusivity is part of the proposition, to use that word for now. Anyway, Tony kindly sent me this comment, and he said, although I feel slightly chastised at the beginning, but I don't mind. I understand where he's coming from. He says, Paul really needs to reread the New Testament. And I agree with you. I do. And I'm planning to do that hopefully a few times before I climb in the wooden box or whatever happens at the end. And he goes on, he says, Jesus later told us that his teachings were for everyone and not just a certain race. And then he goes on to quote Matthew 28:16, and which is, it says, later as they were eating, Jesus appeared and said, go to the whole world. I don't have the whole quote here in front of me. Now, it's really useful, Tony, that you put that in, because what I'm going to, what word should I use, suggest is, I don't know what version it is that you took the quote from, but it's not good. And I'm going to try and illustrate why. I don't even know which one you took it from. One of the things to be aware of, I would say, with regards to these documents, these Bibles, is that the more recent they are, the more useless they are, because there's been a centuries-long, maybe a millennia-long process, and it even begins with the King James, which everybody sort of says this is the really good one. And of course, from a writing point of view, it is, but it's still got a bit of fudge in it, believe you me, it's a bit of errors. Things have been changing all the time, and the idea is to slip things in there that make you think that this is a universalist proposition. And so what I did was I wrote a post to actually sort of illustrate my point. That's the way I'll put it. I'm not trying to be adamantly right here. I just want to illustrate the point. So the thing is that it's to do with the way it's phrased. It's all to do with the way that it's phrased. And it ended up saying, I think in the original quote, it says something like, go out to the whole world. Well, it doesn't say that. You're going to have to take my word for it in this thing, and you can argue it later on if you wanted to. That's not what it says. It actually, because I went and looked it up in the Greek. I mean, what am I like, right? I had to go and look it up in the Greek. I actually called someone up. And it says the actual quote from this bit, and it's to do right at the end of, I can't believe we're starting off with this, but I just had it in front of me. Matthew chapter 28, right at the very end of Matthew, the last 4 or 5 verses. And I wrote this little response back to Tony. I said, the translation you've quoted from is likely incorrect. I suspect it is modern and therefore of not much use. The KJV is closer to the truth, but also contains quite a bit of fudging. The intentional tampering with the text down through the years has been done to impart a false universalist understanding. A testament is a contract, which does mean exclusivity specifically, i.e. it only applies to those on the contract and to no one else. And in the Greek, it said this line right then, it goes, having gone therefore, disciple, being used as a verb, disciple all the nations. This is the key bit. Baptizing them, blah, 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 blah. So the modern translations don't say all the nations. They say things like the whole world, stuff like that. It's absolutely completely wrong. Because the nations being referred to are the nations of Israel. Because otherwise, if we were to take that on board, what we're saying is that Christ didn't know his head from his elbow, and he contradicts himself, and he never does, ever. So I just wanted to get that across. Anyway, this kindly little comment that I put up, ladies and gentlemen, was binned by YouTube twice. I've been trying to repost it. I have no idea why. I'm just sort of really quoting a few things. It's not even sort of unpleasant what I'm saying. So I just wanted to sort of bring that up. I know we talked about it on Monday, Eric, and this is not meant to be a show focusing on that, but I just wanted to deal with it now because I guess my frustration today, having tried to post it 3 times and it keep getting bounced back, and I just can't for the life of me understand why. I even went on to...
I've had similar.
Have you? Yeah, it's a pain, really, because I want to be respectful to this guy, and I can't let him know. Yeah, it's difficult.
I understand. Well, would you like me to... I mean, the chap in Siam had the same trouble, and he only comments on my BitChute channel. Would you like me to refer the chap to BitChute, copy and paste his questions over, and then copy and paste your answer underneath? So then I'll just refer. So please see BitChute.
Yeah, I'll do something
around with that tomorrow.
We can talk about that after the show. Yeah, that's great, Eric. We'll do something like that. Yeah, because it took me I went off. I thought I need to go and do some research on this, which I quite enjoyed doing. I'm not normally like that. I'm normally, I just thought because we're talking about specific words, and it's so easy to get the wrong end of the stick, and it just is, and that process will carry on for some time yet. I just thought it's really worth going in and looking at the specific translations, because then it becomes an argument of, no, this is the right one, no, that's the right one, no, this is the right one, and it's just so it was a good comment, actually. He also wrote another good comment, which I quite liked. I don't have the full. He says it's about ferreting. You remember we were talking about ferrets on Monday? So I think we were ferrets down the trouser legs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He says this. He says, during the Middle Ages, ferreting became illegal.
What part of the Bible is that actually in?
What, ferreting? I think that's in... I can't remember. Patrick, are you aware of any ferreting sections in the Bible? I'm not particularly clear on those.
Ferreting? No.
No?
Not in particular, where you put a ferret in your trousers and it runs around and...
That's it. You've got the hang of it.
And makes it all bloody and...
That's right.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I've ever read that part.
Ferret down trousers.
Yeah. Thou shalt put a ferret down. I don't think there is. Whoops. I don't think there is. Stop. Yeah, that would be quite good. I don't think there is one about that.
Lummy. Oh, yes.
We seem to have a bit of a delay with you, Eric, today. Are you hearing me in real time? It's a bit strange, actually. It's a bit strange. Yeah.
Yes, you never know.
Are you okay? Yeah. Let me read you his comment. This is good. He said, this is another one by Tony as well, but this is on the ferreting.
Let me read seconds, and then I think there's no one there. Okay.
Yeah, there seems, for some strange reason, even though we're on the same platform, there's a lag. There's some kind of a strange lag with getting... Have you got a lag, Patrick, with Eric?
Yeah, he seems to be off just by a second or so.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Okay. Can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Never mind. Let's thunder on.
Away. I mean...
Okay. Yeah. There's a few second delay there.
There is. Eric, you might want to sort of leave the studio and reconnect. It might clear up whatever lag we've got, because there is a bit of a lag. I'm in real time with Patrick, but you're definitely... Yeah, we've got that little sort of pause, and it's not as much fun as it could be.
Right. I'll see you in a few moments.
You leave and just come straight back in, and I'll bolt you straight back in as soon as I see you. So there he is. He's gone now. There we go. We're just trying to get these things sorted out. Anyway, I just want to wait for him to come back, because he probably wants the ferret tail. We all want to hear about ferrets, don't we? Yeah, we do.
Where does this come from? I think I heard a little bit about it up in Yorkshire. You have the tradition.
Yeah, we do. Well, I don't think it's just Yorkshire. It's just all over the place. I know that basically, there's this sort of English thing where at country fairs there would be men that would rock up with their tractors or on the back of a horse or something, or there would be gypsies or, something like that, roustabouts, people, causing mayhem and hooligans and things like this. Tough country folk. And to startle the children and to scare the ladies, they would stand there and they would tie string around the bottom of their trousers and then drop a ferret inside their trousers. Of course, this doesn't seem to be particularly sensible, does it? But the reason why the string was at the bottom is obviously the ferret would escape immediately, and the spectacular results would not be possible. So what occurs is that the ferret, in this sort of little act, will run around inside the farmer's trousers. He might not be a farmer, whoever he is, right? It will run around inside his legs. And in certain examples, you will start to see blood come through the farmer's trousers. Meanwhile, the chap wearing the trousers will be steadfast and won't flicker at all. And there'll be all this commotion in his trousers, right? Seriously. While the ferret bombs around. I don't know whether it goes from one leg to another. I don't know how that would be possible. You'd have to have an extremely large sort of crotch area, I suppose, for it to flit over. Anyway, it's all getting a bit too graphic, isn't it? But what they actually did, they were quite sneaky. They would put meat which had been soaked in a lot of blood down there, and it would drive the ferret crazy because it was quite hungry, and it would tear into this meat. Of course, the crowd is supposed to think that the poor lad's having the flesh ripped from his bones by the ferret. It's not much of a trick. I've never seen it in real life. I don't know if Eric has. Maybe he's seen it.
I don't understand the point of it. I mean, other than to gross people out.
Oh, there's no point. Yeah,
think.
that's it. That's it. You got it. That's the point. That's the point. Yeah. I don't know. Is it a bit like dunking people on stools and things and just doing strange things? It sounds like a
carny thing. Yeah, carnival.
Yeah, it does. It is. It's a kind of carnival trick, I guess. So, come and see the large lady. Come and see the man put ferrets down his trousers. Yeah, there was all that. So that was all part of it. Anyway, this Tony had commented on this. He said, during the Middle Ages, this is just going back from during the Middle Ages, ferreting became illegal unless you were very wealthy. Poor hunters and poachers were forced to smuggle their ferrets past game wardens. Here we go. Now we're getting down to the truth of it. They did this by putting them down their pants or trousers. How it became a sport, I don't know, but it became very popular among Yorkshire miners in the 1970s. Aye, lad, it did. Not that I was a Yorkshire miner. It is. So it's got a heavy Yorkshire bias. Sorry about all this, everybody. I keep going all sort of northern every now and again, don't I?
Why would a miner have one? Are they like parrots?
They got bored easily.
Canaries?
You're digging coal up all day long. It's bloody boring. You're covered in soot and dust. Come out. You have a bit of entertainment with the lads dropping ferrets down.
Is it like the canary in the coal mine? The canary in the coal mine, right? It flies away and alerts everybody that there's been a collapse or there's.
Well, they didn't kind of fly away. What they used to do is they used to die. So you take a canary, you take the canary down the mine to die. You don't want it to die, but their lungs are very, very sensitive to gas. And, of course, they would be hitting pockets of gas as they ploughed and scurried underground, into the pitch black and the cold. It's almost unbelievable thinking what you were able to do, but they were able to do this and did do this under great duress. And so they would take canaries down with them, because they would often hit pockets of gas. And the miners couldn't detect it, being robust types, but the canary in a little cage could, and someone would be like, I guess they must have had a canary watchman, somebody that would look out for canaries and say, oh, we've got a problem here. So, Eric, welcome back. We've just been talking about canaries.
Greetings.
Now that sounds a bit better. Can you hear us in real time now?
Yes, I can hear you in real time now. And what I've done, I've gone onto a different browser and rebooted. I'm rebooted. Sorry, I've gone on a different browser. So
big
that
difference.
Should be okay now.
No, that's great. Yeah, you're right on. We're right on the mark now. That's fantastic. So, yeah, whilst you were away, we were just going into the ferret thing. I hadn't finished the full quote. It turns out that it is to do with Yorkshire, and Tony's made a good contribution. He says, I don't know. He says how it became a sport. So originally, it's to do with poachers smuggling ferrets, right? Smuggling their ferrets down their pants past game wardens. And he said they did this by putting them down their pants. How it became a sport, he says, I don't know, but it became very popular among Yorkshire miners in the 1970s. It's there that ferret legging Hall of Famer Reg Mellor, now there's a British name for you, Reg Mellor, took up the sport. When Mellor began, the record for ferret legging was a measly 60 seconds. Mr. Mellor was able to reach 5 hours and 26 minutes with a ferret down his trousers. Oh, boy. Does anybody want to take it up? We could maybe get together. You know what? We've got some... Why don't we have the Fockham Ferret Festival, Eric? You need to get it set
Excellent
up.
idea. Excellent. But I think that chap that won the competition was the first sex change operation, wasn't it, really? Via a ferret. So,
and it only took 5 hours and 26 minutes.
That's right.
There you go, sir. There's your troubles all over. The ferret's a bit fatter as well. Blah, heck.
And you've explained why my granddad's canary died now. Because earlier I could hear you saying about canaries down the mines.
Yeah.
We had a Brussels sprout lunch, and because he got them cheap, and then his canaries dead on the bottom of the cage. So that's the answer. Their lungs are very susceptible to gas.
So yeah, I'm really glad. I'm really glad you've offered that up because Christmas is nearly upon us. Now I don't know what it's like over there in your neck of the woods, Patrick, but over here the Brussels sprout is like the atomic bomb of the Christmas lunch, okay? It's a mighty thing. And people either go, I love Brussels sprouts, or they absolutely detest them. It's a bit like Marmite. I don't know if you know about Marmite, but
I like
Marmite,
them.
Yeah, I like them too, but they can be a little bit forceful. And I think that's what Eric was referring to, and rightly so. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are about to have Christmas lunch with sprouts, and you should probably, safeguard your canary. If you're keeping canaries and sprouts, bad combination for Christmas lunch. You know, you might lose your canary. I don't know if that's a euphemism for something, but it could be. But there we go. Yes. I mean, I remember eating some a few years ago, and my sons were killing themselves laughing. I don't know why, but I was absolutely poleaxed by them, and I literally had to lay down on the lounge floor for like 20 minutes. I couldn't move. I just said, oh, my giddy aunt. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, fun at both ends, as they're often referred to. We've only been in 27 minutes, and we've really got right down to toilet level already, haven't we? So it's pretty good.
We have. Pretty good. Can we go a bit lower? Because Bedfordshire
I'm sure you can.
was noted for Brussels sprouts. Oh, yes.
What was noted for Brussels sprouts?
Bedfordshire. If you go to Bedfordshire, where we had a farm, and if you go there in say January or February, when it's after it's been raining a lot, or possibly this time of year, if you've ever smelt a wet Brussels sprouts field, it smells like constant flatulence all the time, and people just get used to it. But you drive there, and you think, my godfathers, you open the window, you sort of close the window, and it is really foul. But I suppose the locals get used to it. But that was a Brussels sprouts capital of England, and that's Bedfordshire.
It's a mighty vegetable. I couldn't stand sprouts at all when I was young, and my mum would go on, try one, and I go, no. I had the two things I couldn't eat were sprouts and beetroot. They were deadly. Beetroot is still deadly to me. It's like garlic is to a vampire. I just can't handle it at all. But my cousin got married when I was 13, and I had my first sprout that I liked at the wedding reception at the Grand Hotel in Leeds. It might not be there now because they've probably smashed it. It was a lovely old sort of Victorian hotel, and you're 13 and your mum dresses you up and you've got your little suit on or whatever it is. But the reason why I liked them so much is that they were smothered with gravy and pepper, and it worked. And they weren't strong tasting because my dad would go, "Oh, have these? They've got a bit of frost in them." Did you have that sort of saying that?
Yes. Parsnips as well. If you get a frost in the parsnips, because during World War II, there was I don't think you get sugar at all. So people used parsnips in cakes to sweeten them, and they were very, very sweet. And if they'd been had frost in them, they would and people still put them in cakes today. If you've got an old recipe book, and I know someone that did, and they said it's really lovely and sweet, but there's no sugar. So you don't get tooth decay or anything like that. It's a very good sweetener. Again, only if you get frost in it. Yeah.
Beets make sugar, so it's probably something similar.
They do. Just hopping back as well to the trousers, as we do. Hopping back into our trousers. Gizzy51 writes, this is the biblical trouser connection that we needed to know. He said, and he's right, or she did, they didn't have trousers in biblical times. And that's why ferrets down your trousers never took off back then, because they just didn't have any trousers. Maybe they had pantaloons. Didn't Arabs have things at the time? I don't know. I suppose they didn't.
Well,
They're all running around.
Cloths.
Oh, yeah. You ferret down your loincloth is a bit worrying, isn't it? We don't want that. Well, it's a bit much. That's a bit much. Oh, ouch. Just thinking about it. That's a bit rough. Is that?
Yeah.
And another little thing, a nice segue into something, as well. Billy Silver writes that Roald Dahl, whose short stories are amazing. He says, Dahl wrote a short story involving a ferret down the trousers. He did. The Rat Catcher, I think it was called. Ralph Fiennes played the Rat Catcher in the short. Have you seen these shorts by Wes Anderson? There are 3 or 4 of them. They're absolutely brilliant. In fact, I was speaking to someone the other day. So are you familiar with Wes Anderson, the film director?
Yeah, he's kind of like a postmodernist type filmmaker. If it's the same one, I don't know what he makes these really like dry.
He does
type films. Yeah,
I absolutely love him. I think it's pure storytelling, and he gets many of his characters will just turn to the camera and talk to you directly right in the middle of a scene, and then it carries on in the background. He has a flat way of sort of filming things. If you've not seen America, I think you'd really like them. Anyway, he got hold of 4 of Dahl's short stories. And the Rat Catcher, it has got Ralph Fiennes in it, and he actually looks like a rat. He's absolutely brilliant. He's brilliant in it. It's a wonderful story. Whenever I hear Roald Dahl, though, I'm always reminded of Peter Cook, the comedian who is, of course, no longer with us. And I remember he once did a sort of pastiche. There was this show over here called, was it The Mysterious World of Roald Dahl or something like that? And there were some really creepy stories in that, particularly the landlady. That's really creepy and weird. And it's very difficult to find even on YouTube. They seem to have pulled it. She has a way of really caring for her residents that's a bit over the top, let's put it that way, without sort of giving you a spoiler for the whole thing. But Cook was doing this little, he was doing this pastiche of whatever it was, The Mysterious World of Roald Dahl. It's not the exact title, but it's something like that. And he sat in front of this fire and he said, he goes, hello, I'm Roald Dahl. Actually, it's not my real name. My real name's Ronald. I just took the N out to sound more mysterious. I just love that. Because Ronald Dahl, it all falls apart pretty quick, doesn't it? It's all gone. Yeah. What, Ron Dahl? Yeah, so amazing stuff. And the other one is a cracking one called, is it The Secret Life of Henry Sugar? Which has got, now it's something Henry Sugar. I've got the title wrong in my head, but it's one of these shorts. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch in the lead role. It's fabulous. It's absolutely one of the most fabulous 25 minutes I've ever spent watching stuff. It's just tremendous. He is supposedly, Dahl makes out it's based on a true story. It's just completely brilliant entertainment for about half an hour. It's wonderful. He plays the role of a gambler. And one day he's in a house and he picks up this book and he reads it and he starts reading about this Indian gentleman who had learnt to see without opening his eyes and could see everything. And he used to do these spectacular sort of events in these market squares in and around India where he'd have a turban over his head and his eyes were all sealed up. And then he'd go out riding his bicycle into traffic and never get hit. So this guy, this character in this true story, of course, you see, he trains himself how to do this. And then he starts going to casinos and winning all the time because he can see the cards. It's just fab. It's absolute fab. It's pure storytelling wonderfulness, really. So if you're looking for something good to watch over the Christmas period or even before that, the 4 shorts by Wes Anderson are tremendous. I think there's only one in there that's not so great. I can't remember which one it is, but the other 3 are pretty brilliant. So really fantastic stuff.
I've just got into the Twilight Zone, which was an American series in the 50s.
Oh, I thought you meant you'd literally 60s. Gone into it.
Well, I probably could. Yeah, I probably am. And they're bloody good. Years of, and you see all the stars that made it later on, very young on there. And, it was years ahead of its time. It's a shame it was pulled.
Rod Serling. The Twilight Zone. It was him, wasn't it?
Imagine if you will. That's right. Imagine if you will.
Imagine a world.
Really?
Yeah, it was that stuff. Yeah, they're great. There's some really good little twisty tales in those things, weren't there? Yeah. Yeah, there were.
But you can see them now on YouTube. They're most of them are on there. And they got the one that was banned on there as well.
Right.
About the samurai sword, where a bloke was possessed by it. And that was Mr. Zulu, I think, of Star Trek, acted the part. Yeah. So
right.
It's quite interesting. But do you remember Tales of the Unexpected?
That was what I meant. It wasn't Roald Dahl's Mysterious World. That's exactly what I meant. It was Tales of the Unexpected.
Tales of the Unexpected. Yes.
By Ronald Dahl. Yes. I think so, yeah. Is that one? There's one in there with a gambler, is there? In one of those?
There's one that lost. What it was, there's a chap who had could be wrong, I think he had a cigarette lighter. And he said, he invented it and it lights every time. And the fella said to him, well, okay, I'll do a bet with you that you can light that cigarette lighter. And if you can light it straight away, I'll give you, I can't remember how much, so many £1 million. He proves that he's a millionaire to give that. And this chap gets really nervous. And then he's sweating so much when he's about to light the cigarette lighter, that he says, no, I can't go through with this. And when he looks round, this gambler's wife has got no fingers. Because he said he'd cut the finger off if he gets it wrong.
There's always something dark and cruel and menacing in Dahl's stories. That's what makes them kind of compulsive to watch. There's the darkness is going to come into the story at some point. Something unpleasant. Yeah, something a little bit severe. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's why kids love him, I guess. He kind of understood that. He did, very interesting guy. His wife, we're just talking about fluff, aren't we, right now? Anyway, fluff's good. Yeah. His wife was what was that film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, with Michael Rennie? You remember that? With Gort. The robot. Yes. Which spooked me when I was about 8 or 9 when I first saw it, and is still better than the new one, particularly because it just is. The woman that was in that was Dahl's wife.
Really?
In real life, yeah. Yeah, she was his real, I forgot, American actress. Yeah. And she had... It's a fantastic story. It shows you what he was like as a guy. So they were very much in love because he was, I think he was sent out as he was in the army and he was sent out as an ambassador to New York just after the war, I think, so 50s and 60s, something like that. Mm-hmm. And apparently he was 6'3", very dashing, and all the ladies had fallen in love with him. When he wasn't writing stories and stuff, he's out there being very charming, hello, and all this, or however he spoke. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's right. They got connected. Anyway, she had a heart attack, right? Really bad one, and couldn't talk or anything. She didn't obviously die in this heart attack, but she had a severe stroke. So she had to stop filming and everything like that. And he brought her back to full speaking and everything, spent 18 months or 2 years of his life working relentlessly with her to get her back to a condition all the time. He gave up everything to look at. Yeah, it's a really great tale, and it just shows you what it was like. So obviously, I guess like most of us, darkness comes into everybody's life, and this is the cheery show. So I'm not trying to say that all the time, but he's a very interesting guy and a great writer. There's another one as well. I mean, Ralph Fiennes is in many of these things. Is Fiennes, by the way, in every single film being made. Every time I turn a film on, he's in it. He's in everything. It's not that he's hard to watch. He's absolutely brilliant in everything he does, I think. He's very sort of captivating, but he seems to be in every film being made right now. I don't know. I probably got that wrong, but there we go. What was I going to say about the darkness? Oh, yeah, after last week's show, I just want to address last week's show as well, which, of course, was kind of a show of two halves. We had a first half that was pretty much like this, moving all over the shop, which we kind of like, it's good. But, obviously, those of you that caught it, and many did, it's been viewed, more than anything else because of the arrival of Dave Gahary and our discussion with regards to the passing of Tom Goodrich. And I was fortunate enough... it was such a good call. I really should have recorded it, although I probably wouldn't have got permission to broadcast it anyway. But I wanted to speak to Tom's wife, Michelle, and I managed to speak to her, I think it was yesterday. or Tuesday, probably yesterday, I think it was. And we had a wonderful call for about an hour, just effectively sharing our good thoughts and sentiments for Tom and the fact that we miss him and this, that, and the other. And she was in very good shape, really. But she did tell me, she told me two things about him that I didn't know. One was that he was a really good painter. And I don't mean of, furniture. He was a painter. He used to paint lighthouses and landscapes. I said, the bugger, he never told me that. He didn't. He never told me that at all. So he kept that one well hid. I said, didn't he ever want to get back to it? And apparently not. He didn't want to get back to it. So that was that little tale. And then I was informed that they used to go on cruises a lot of the time, all over the place. And they were on one particular cruise. This is kind of so funny. It's so funny, but it's dark at the same time. They were on one particular cruise, and Tom had a couple of drinks. I think he was okay, but he'd had a couple of drinks, so his judgment was probably not 100%. And there was this other couple at a table, and this woman, or the husband had said, the woman had said, yeah, I'm blind, I can't see. Tom leant over and said, and had two fingers in front of him, said, how many fingers am I holding up? Didn't really quite know what he was saying. I'm sorry, I find that quite funny, actually. And so Michelle was telling me that she was absolutely mortified and quickly ushered him away from the table. And when she told him later on, he was absolutely mortified as well, then spent the next day hunting down to apologise profusely, but I think he'd kind of blown it. But the way she told it was very amusing, and I could sort of see Tom doing something like that. It's a bit, so he couldn't believe that he'd done it because he was such a good-mannered guy. And the kind of update from now is that his ashes will be spread on a battlefield from the war between the states, often referred to as the Civil War. I don't know which battlefield it will be, but if I get to find out, I will, just by way of keeping everybody informed, let you know which one it was. But that was a wonderful show last week. Very different, of course, because of the mood and the sentiment, but there's been a lot of comments coming back with regards to it, and it's been, I quite enjoyed doing it. I have to say that. Dave was very, very good. And it went down pretty well, I thought. So, yes, that's kind of what was happening. Yeah.
Well, it's thanks to that author that people know about Hellstorm. They know what happened to Germany and how the German people suffered, which has all been swept under the carpet.
Yeah.
It's been airbrushed from history. Totally. I didn't know about this until Hellstorm came along. I really didn't know.
Nobody did. Yeah. I don't think anybody really did. And there's quite a few comments on that video over on Rumble, about 18. So we don't normally get that amount here because, as I said, we're still trying to build up a head of steam. There's a gentleman, though, who runs a website called the West's Darkest Hour, and it's full of similarly heavy. He's called Cesar Tort. I think he's Spanish or from Central America. So Cesar, if you catch this, my apologies if I've not quite nailed it in. But he put a comment in there, and I've had a little email exchange with it. In fact, I've got to send something back to him. But he wrote this very brief little sort of post with regards to him. He says, Michael Thomas Goodrich, born Michael Thomas Schoenlein. I didn't know that, but it doesn't matter. The author of what I consider the most important book written in English this century, died on Wednesday. Not long ago, I exchanged my last correspondence with him, telling him I wanted to promote his books on this site. Today, his publisher, that's Dave, confirmed that he had passed away. Even in the last book of my autobiography in Spanish, I leave the reader with and this is so true, I leave the reader with the thankless task of reading Hellstorm, since without that reading, my mental transformation from liberal to conservative, from conservative to white nationalist, and from white nationalist to national socialist, that'll probably get us kicked off YouTube, won't it? Could not be understood. Goodbye, Tom. There are no writers like you left in your country. May some English speakers at least pick up your torch. And it's so very true. I've been thinking about him a lot over the past few days. Oh, there's a comment here. I hadn't seen it from Dennis. Dennis Wise has also written. He says, rest up. So, Dennis, if you're hearing this, I hope you don't mind me quoting it and reading it out. Dennis writes, he says, rest in peace, my friend. Your incredible work will live on, and the truth will prevail. Hellstorm is a masterpiece, and although it was painful for you to write, you succeeded in informing the world of this tragedy. You will always be a hero, especially to the German people. Spot on, Dennis. Absolute straight up. It is a thankless task to read it. If you have not read it, I am urging you to do so. I was talking to someone about it the other day, and quite a few people, of course, they go, well, I don't really like the sound of that. It's a bit dark, and that's an understatement. It is extremely dark, and I don't know if we said it last week that one of Tom's quotes with regards to his work on that was he said that in the writing of it, he died 1,000 deaths, and you can understand that. So I did the audiobook for it. If you want an audiobook, you can do it. But even though I did that, and it was part of a thing that I wanted to do to offer something back to Tom because he'd been so helpful to me as well. Reading it is quite a thing. And at least you get the opportunity when you're reading to just stop reading instantaneously if it's just getting a bit too much. Now, you may think this is sort of like all a bit fey and we're over-egging the custard. What I would say is that if you get through the whole book, and you should, and you get to the end, you will be changed by it. It's one of those books that will change you because you will perceive the depths of the darkness to which, seriously, the other side will absolutely plunge us in again if that's all they can do. And I think it's very, very important to be aware of it, about the nature of the intent that comes from that side that is seeking literally to wipe us out. There's no soft way of putting this. Many people know it. We don't address it full on in this show. I've done it in other places in the past, and we don't do it full on for the simple reason that, as many of you know, here in jolly old England, free speech is not so jolly and it's not so free, and they don't want us really raising up a ball of energy around these things. But they can't stop you reading books, and you really, I can't urge you enough to do this terrible thing, a terrible invitation to go and read it, and because it's an amazing experience to read it. Along with the books by James Back are similar, but Tom's has a visceral emotional intensity that's I've never come across anywhere else. And his understanding and his sympathy for the German people is throughout the book. And it's really not just it's for any people whose story has not been heard. And we know about that a lot here from many of the things that we keep touching on, to give them a voice. And it's a desperately needed voice. Because, as I've said here, as we've said here, the whole of Western Christian Europe, however you may feel about that terminology, lost. Everybody lost. Nobody won that. Certainly not in terms of our people. It was a major blow, and it's obvious to those that look into it that all of the reductions in our freedom, the constrictions and constraints that are being placed upon us are a direct result of that defeat, because we lost control of our own homes through that. Everything has been hoovered in, now we got to fight the communists, so you have a Cold War, it's all made up, and all this kind of stuff. Now we've got globalism, which is communism, which is blah, 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 blah. It's, it might look different, the form may change, but the experience and the intent is exactly the same. It's not changed in a long time, which is why, at times here, I go back to referencing things from the Bible with a view to hopefully referencing them in a way that fits in with this context, which I believe it does. I read it that way. Some people may take issue with me over that, and they often do. That's fine too. I don't mind that. But all of these things are tied in together. So I know this is not all about Tom again, but the last few days I've thought about him a great deal. And I do have a copy of Scalp Dance, and I was speaking to David Gahary the other day, and maybe I might read another one if there's a require. I just think I might read another one. Maybe, Summer of 45, The Harvest of Hate, that one, which is pretty grim too. And I think the last little point I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, but in philosophical esoteric circles, there is a saying, which is true, which is that the light comes out of the dark. And that's why it's worthwhile looking into that darkness, because you may think I'm getting a little flowery here, but you can end up becoming the light that comes out of it. It makes you see things in such a detailed way that it's very useful, I think, to be aware of it. We touch upon these things regularly here, and we deal with things with energy and other things, but there are times for serious, somber thinking, and that's one of them. So it will aid everyone who's not yet read it, even though it's not much of an invitation. Go and read this book, and you might be a little bit down in the mouth for a few weeks as you get your way through it, because but I felt really informed and, in a way, strangely enlightened afterwards, because you begin to see the real nitty gritty of what's actually going on, and it's hell if we let it ride.
Tom has fully honoured those who generally suffered and died through that. I think that's telling the truth. You're fully honouring the victims of that, what can only be known as a hidden genocide. But I know that I'll be careful what I say, because I believe you're on YouTube as well.
Oh, we've just lost the account. We've just lost it, Eric. No, we haven't. I'm just teasing.
Okay. Oh, Patrick puts up a very interesting YouTube, and it's a miracle it's still on YouTube, absolute miracle, of a Catholic father who's looked into a certain event that's supposed to have happened about 80 to 90 years ago, which we cannot criticise or cannot even investigate. And he actually goes into it. And again, it's on YouTube. And Patrick, what's his name? Father?
Ooh, that's a good question. I was on with Eric Gajewski a couple days ago, and we were talking about him. I forget his name.
I think he's British. But
he is British. He is British. And he's a regular.
What a brave man. What a brave man. He's had several of his videos taken down.
Right.
But he looks into a certain subject that we're not allowed to investigate or talk about or anything like that, which, of course, as it's 100% true and it happens exactly how we're told, we don't need to look into it, do we? Sorry, I'm being sarcastic. And the thing is that, as I've always said, truth does not require censorship, only lies do. So my attitude, if you can't look into something, I'm suspicious. Why can't you look into it? And but I think anyone on Telegram will be able to find it on Telegram channels, but it's actually on YouTube. And hang on,
Maudsley, Father Maudsley. I don't know his first name. I think it starts with a J.
Right.
Father Maudsley. And I'm just trying to find his site now.
It is called, what was the...
Scripture and Tradition by FRJM. So
Father JM.
Yeah.
What was the final solution? That's the title of it, with a question mark.
Right. Maybe if you could type that in the chat. I need to, because I can't take notes. That would be useful to track that. So you say there's a YouTube video by him dealing with things in a particular way.
Yes.
Is that, and it's still up there?
I'll put it in the chat, in the Rumble.
Cheers,
right
thanks,
now.
Patrick.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, I'm shocked that YouTube has still got it there. But he's very careful with his words. I noticed that it's scripted. You can tell it's scripted. He's really very detailed with his words, so he doesn't put a word out of place. You have to be very clever.
You have to be.
Yes.
I think free-form discussion about it, you're likely to slip up in some way. It's sad that it has to be this way, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually not sad. Maybe it's actually very constructive and useful to think in a more precise way about these things.
I think... sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, it's fine.
Paul, carry on. I actually think that Keir Starmer is a blessing in disguise, because he's actually showing people what communism is and what it's about. And he's blundering along, so, give him enough rope, as they say, and he'll hang himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's doing.
It's like any of these. There's an overreach of their what do you want to call it? Chutzpah.
Yeah.
Chutzpah overreach. And it ends up being the undoing of whatever they're trying to do, because it sheds light. It's like, they also call it the Streisand effect. Are you aware of the Streisand effect?
I am, but go through it, Patrick. The Streisand effect.
Right.
This is about bursting into song spontaneously on a street corner.
She was, exactly. She was Barbara Streisand was trying to hide her property address and was doing it through, I think it was like Google or one of these mapping companies.
Right.
I might not be telling this right, but anyway, by her making a stink about it and not wanting people to know about it, it just drew attention to her property even more, and
Right.
it blew up in her face. So they call it the Streisand effect. It's like you try to hide something, but it becomes bigger by you trying to hide it.
Yes.
In the Bible, it's the guilty flee where none pursue.
Yes. They reveal their intentions by trying to hide them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the dog who does his business in the house, and you can tell by the look on his face he doesn't want you to know about it.
I've never experienced such a thing, having not had a dog in my life. So, yeah.
Really? You've never had a dog?
No, I'm pestered relentlessly, and on my walks up and down the seashore here, I bump into dog owners, and their dogs bump into me, and I'm not anti-dog or anything.
How about cats?
Well, there was a cat in this house, not by my say-so, and it came in, and we got rid of it.
I grew up with all sorts of things.
I know, and you killed most of them as well.
Well, yeah, not all of them. I told you the one in chat when you were talking with Eric about the pythons that we had, the Burmese pythons.
Right.
And they got to be too much to handle, so my dad sold them to this fella, or gave them away to this fella named Monty.
Right.
So they became Monty's pythons.
But I probably said this before, but remember the old Chinese saying, a dog is not just for Christmas. With care, some can be left over for sandwiches in the new year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Survival Steve, tell him about, gotta have a dog around for some reason, man's best friend for good reason.
Yeah. I've never had a dog or cat either.
No.
I'm the same as you, Paul. No.
I've been to China. They had dog and cat.
I had a brother and sister, and that was enough. My parents told me that was enough. We've got children. We don't need animals. So that was that. So there we go. But I'm not against dogs or anything like that. And as I said, I get my ear bent about it Dad, come on, you'd get a dog. I'm going, nah, no.
I haven't. No. I don't like cats. We had a mountain lion my dad had as a pet, and it wasn't. It was a wild animal. Come on. I mean, he was treating it like a pet, and it's like, well, Dad, come on, get that thing out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he did, but ever since that point, I never really liked cats all that much. They're devious.
I couldn't eat a whole one, could you?
No,
a
bit tricky.
No.
Of course, they're venerated in Egyptian philosophy, because they can see in the dark. So it's kind of an esoteric parallel, as above, so below, and all that. So this is why you get so many cats in Egyptian motifs and illustrations and everything, that they can see into the underworld. They can see into the darkness, which, of course, we're talking about. So. Remember, never forget, light comes from the dark. This is very encouraging. It's not the other way around. So you can't have any light until you've first got a background of absolute pitch black nothingness. So there has to be pitch black nothingness before there's glorious light.
Rumble chat, Exo's got a comment. I prefer catma to dogma.
Oh, dear.
Very witty. I quite like that. And earlier on, just to re-emphasize it, Cesar Tort's website is, and Alvin Kurt put it in there, West's, with an S, West's Darkest Hour. It's worth heading over there because he's put a couple of extra other posts in with regards to Tom. You'll find a lot of information that I've not covered here, and I'm not going to. I think it's better to go and read it. And the other thing that I would like to thank Cesar for is that it was because of his championing, I'm going to use that word, of Tom's work back in 2009 and 10 when the book first came out, because I was looking at it then, that I ended up reading the book. Because his site has a very detailed and intelligent, I don't want to say intellectual, but it is intellectual, a very detailed and intelligent approach to inner psychology, what's really going on with individuals that are obviously destroying the world, and to do with the complacency of the West. That's why it's called West's Darkest Hour, because it really is. It's the darkest hour we've ever faced, in the sense that there's just a lot of darkness still in people, i.e. they're not fully up to speed. And I think, Nathan's book, which we were discussing the other day, Fake Awake, is also part of it, is that people have taken a series of steps in. But this is why I would say, just coming right back to the thing with Tom's work, Hellstorm, if you get into that, if you read it all the way through, you'll be just about fully awake. I mean, like totally. You have to go through the darkness to get out the other side. Sorry, I just think that's the way it is. It just looks that way. It's not much of an invite. But anyway, we're at the top of the hour. We're an hour in. We're all warmed up, we think, although I need to put the heating on in here. And of course, a few moments ago, Eric, you were mentioning the wonderful Keir Starmer. And I don't know if you know, but there's a band that's been put together, God bless their cotton little socks, called Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers. I don't know if you've heard of them. They've got a song out. We're going to play. It's called Freezing This Christmas. You'll recognize the tune. We're going to take this song at the top of the hour, just after the top of the hour. We'll be back in a few moments after this.
That's full of cold. Try to imagine being 80 years old. That's where I'll be since Keir left me. I wish tears could heat my home. What can I do without fuel? I've got no place to go. It'll be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home. It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
She told me that she doesn't get out of bed till midday because she didn't want to turn the heating on.
Each time I remember I've paid taxes all my life. I cry as I wonder, will I make it? Will my wife? I just break down as I look around, and the only things I see are foreign walls and open doors and a freezing OAP. It'll be freezing this Christmas while our money goes abroad. It'll be freezing this Christmas. Rachel Reeves is a fraud. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas.
We inherited a situation where there was a £22 billion black hole in the public finances.
Do you remember last year when Rishi was here? We never thought there'd be an end. And I remember looking at you then, and I remember thinking that next Christmas things won't be this bad for us. But darling, this year things are even worse. And we really need warmth. And two-tier Keir doesn't care at all. It'll be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home. It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm. It'll be cold, so cold, without fuel at home this Christmas. Merry Christmas, Keir. I hope you can sleep at night.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yes, thank you. We're here in the middle of the show, just on the top of the hour, the first hour, 9:05 in jolly old England, 4:05 US Eastern Time, and you were listening to Sir Starmer and the Granny Hammers. Sir Starmer and the Granny Hammers with Freezing This Christmas, obviously based on some song. Was it by Elvis? Was that an Elvis song? It was, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm not up on Elvis. Dave Gahary would be all over me now. But that's a very British sort of thing. I think there's a little campaign up and about to try and get that. It's 79p if you want to buy it. I think it's 79 pence, which is probably about $1 on, where would it be? Amazon or somewhere like that, or Spotify. Maybe you can buy it there. The idea is to try and make it the Christmas number one. That's what's everybody's after, to try and make that the Christmas number one. So if you get the urge and want to see it and hear it on Top of the Pops, which doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, or does it? Who cares? That's the one to buy. Anyway, probably requires a few repeat listings, but the lyrics are quite accurate and poignant, you know. So all that kind of. Sorry about the dinging there. I've got some dinging going on. There's nothing worse, is there? Anyway. Yes, Sir Keir. Ding dong. Yes, absolutely. Now, something I stumbled across a couple of weeks back, maybe 10 days or so ago. I think actually from a link put in the Telegram chat associated with this show. So my apologies for not noting who came up with it, but I wanted to Dominic Cummings. That probably doesn't ring any bells with you at all, does it, Patrick? I don't think it will.
No.
Good. That's good. He was kind of an enforcer, wasn't he, in the Conservative Party? I don't know exactly what his official title was, Eric. Can you remember what it was?
I can't really. These people just come and go. I don't really take much notice of them.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, I remember reading an article. He was kind of a heavy guy, would supposedly, or something like that, and would make sure that meetings ran properly and would knock people into shape. And actually, I think in a previous life, he actually was a bouncer at a nightclub, or had been a bouncer. So from bouncing to politics, it's probably one great but simple jump. I don't know. Anyway, this is a 2-minute clip. I hope it'll be loud enough. You know that we have addressed here and will continue to address the fact that the government is not in charge of things, that it's not in charge. And this goes back a long time. It's the same for you people in the United States. I'm sorry if I burst your bubble. They're not. They take their orders from something else. I call it the money power. You can call it what you like, the Mickey Mouse Club. We don't care. They're not. Right? Because if they were, things would have been sorted out an awful long time ago. They are completely compromised by the position that they're in. Well, Dominic Cummings is no longer in politics because the Conservative Party is no longer the government of the UK. But this is 2 minutes and 39 seconds of him addressing a group of, I think, civil servants and possibly MPs or MPs' dogs' bodies, something like that. There was a video clip for it, but you don't need to see it. Just listen to him talking a little bit. 2.5 minutes. Here we go.
If you think of two roles, right? The Foreign Secretary in Great Britain and the private secretary in the PM's office responsible for foreign affairs, an official whose name has never been in the newspapers. That person was like 10 times more powerful and important than the Secretary of State was. And I think this is something which people just don't really realize. And it's part of like how the whole system has become fake. So you have fake meritocracy, fake responsibility, and then fake cabinet government. So they all walk up Downing Street, the cameras whir, they pose, they smile, ha ha, I'm going into the most powerful meeting, aren't I great? But it's all nonsense. The cabinet is just a kind of stage theatre. And actually officials in the cabinet office have already decided it all. When you sit in Whitehall now, right, in meetings, they are literally scripted. So when the Prime Minister has a meeting with ministers, what happens is that before the Prime Minister has that meeting, officials go into the Prime Minister's study and they give him a folder. And in the folder at the front is a thing called Chairman's Notes. And that's the script. And that's what the Prime Minister reads out. And the conclusions for the meeting are in the Chairman's Notes, drafted before the meeting happens, right? So the Prime Minister says, hello, Secretary of State, blah, blah, blah. And then all these officials sit around the sides on chairs around the edge of the room. And then the MP, the Secretaries of State, all look down at their folders because they've all got their scripts, right? And this is why I use the NPC meme, right? Because then the Prime Minister reads out, well, we're here to discuss blah, blah, blah. And then he goes around the room, and then Secretary of State for Justice or the Foreign Secretary reads out his bullet points, and then he reads out their bullet points, and they read out. If anyone goes on a script, you see the officials sort of go, and then look over at the other official on the side of the room and kind of go, that means we'll come back to that after the meeting and make sure that that doesn't happen. And then at the end, it was a fascinating, great discussion. Thank you so much for your wonderful, insightful, original contributions. And then he reads out the conclusions, which are all drafted in advance. And it sounds like a parody, but it is literally how the British state functions. And the MPs are happy with that, right? Well, how does the psychology of it work? The officials are happy because they have almost all the real power. The Cabinet Secretary is now 100 times more powerful than any Cabinet Minister apart from the PM. And the MPs are happy because this whole system pretends that they're in charge. So both sides are basically happy with the fake version of the government.
Well, I've never heard of such a thing. Have you, Eric? Are you shocked?
Can't say I'm shocked because, well, before we went into a meeting, I won't say where, this has nothing to do with government or anything like that. This is within architecture. The contractor and myself used to work out what we're going to say before the meeting to put on a good sort of display to the client. And we'd be having a go at each other. It was all we all worked it out beforehand. Because unfortunately, that's what happens. And this wasn't in government. This was a project I was working on. And it was, the client was particularly awful. And so we had to sort of do this to please the client. And it was a client's representative that we had to deal with. So it looks as if we was having a go at each other, but we weren't. It was just an act we put on in the meeting, just so we could keep the contract going. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
I'm not unfamiliar with that in business circles, of course. You play this part, I'll play that part. Okay. All that kind of nonsense and malarkey. But everybody else goes along. They know that you're doing it. They go, yeah, well, we'll play the part that we're actually convinced by. It's just all fake. But what I found interesting about this, I don't know a great deal about Cummings. Someone's written that he used to be a member of Shawaddy. Is this true, XO? Or are you just writing a spurious and hilarious comment? There used to be this Teddy Boy band. They were sort of... they were already out of date when they were in date or something in the 1970s, called Shawaddy. It's difficult to know why you would call yourself that, but they released a whole series of covers of 1950s sort of doo-wop songs and things like this. Was he really in that band? I did know that he was a bouncer, though. I remember reading that. But it's who he was. I mean, okay, you couldn't see it. It was a gathering of about 20 or 30 of these people. Most of them are just grinning as if they've never heard this before. As if, wow, look at, isn't this amazing? Whereas I would suggest that one of the themes around here, not just around here, many shows, is these people are just goofing around. They're actors. Orson Welles was absolutely right when he was asked what he thought of politicians. They're actors. But it's literally the case. And of course, he's talking about scripts. No one's allowed to go off script. And the Cabinet Secretary has got more power than all the ministers. Hello? And who's he? We don't know, do we? And it's this sort of the burying away of the decision-making process which makes it unexaminable, why everything is stuck in sort of aspic. Nothing really changes. They say things, but of course, they not only do they not have any intention of doing them, they haven't got any power to actually do it either. God, I wish my thing had stopped doing that. It's very irritating. Sorry about that. I don't know where it's coming from. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. Absolutely. It was for comic effect, says XO. Oh, well, I quite like him as being in... now, actually, Dominic was actually a member of Shawaddy. He just doesn't like to talk about it. I made it up for comic effect. Oh, I'm all confused. No, it's okay. I'll shut up, Waddy. No, it's cool. I quite like him being in Shawaddy Waddy, which was not much of a band, but no, I think it's a great clip. You probably haven't heard it anywhere. I don't know how many views it's got on YouTube or whatever it is, but not too many. And I didn't see it on the mainstream news or anything like that. Isn't this the sort of thing that the British public need to be informed about? That the whole thing's a complete pantomime? But then we're not likely to hear that sort of stuff from the BBC, are we? Or from anywhere, because they're part of the pantomime too. And I know I'm only restating the bleeding obvious, as we say over here in England from time to time. But it's worth restating. So it's a good little clip that might come around a few times on this show in the months to come, because it's just one of those things, a bit like the one, I've forgotten her name now, you know, the Prime Minister, the very goofy girl who was Prime Minister for 36 seconds or something, when she was talking about the Governor of the Bank of England having more power than the Prime Minister. These are the things that, you know, every now and again, a little cat comes out of the mighty bag, and I think that was one of those moments, really. So I quite liked that. I quite like that a lot.
Well, we've also got a foreign secretary that doesn't realise that thought that Syria is. He just didn't understand. Was it Syria is next to Libya? That's what he believed, and he went to
David
America.
Lammy.
That's right,
Yeah.
foreign secretary, and someone's actually sent a photograph in to a competition. And they've actually had the photograph returned, and they said, and the runners of the competition said, "We're very sorry we've had to return this photograph of the foreign secretary, but the competition, and we realise you may be dyslexic because the competition name is Fact Hunts." Think about it.
Yes, I just did. I didn't have to think about it too long.
But no, seriously though, I mean, what kind of foreign secretary goes to America wearing a suit and white trainers and doesn't realise and thinks that Syria is well, he just doesn't understand geography and is a foreign secretary. I mean,
Yes. Do you think that that's by design, though,
makes
Eric?
me
Because I think it's
Libya.
by design. It's intentional. It's by design. It's not an accident that
Well, they're all
he's...
dunces, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they're all dunces. I mean, quite honestly, they're not bright at all. They are as dim. Because
Oh, come on. Boris Johnson's got to be the brightest politician ever.
Yeah. He's the brightest bulb on the tree, surely. I mean, I don't think he is stupid, but he was...
No.
They're all playing roles. They're all playing a
they are.
role. You know, just like Cummings was saying there, they're all playing their role. It's like the whole thing scripted. You're going to be the bad guy for the next 6 months. Yeah, you're going to be talking about this, and everybody's going to go boo, boo, boo. But they'll all forget about it in a year, so don't worry about it. You'll just be unpopular, and then you'll make a great big comeback in the spring of the following year when they all go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And nothing happens. Nothing changes. Never has, never will. The whole thing is just completely stuck. I think the only... Well, I don't know what the only thing is, so it's a stupid thing to say, but a possible option for us, although yet again these things have got to be coordinated, and we seem to be quite reluctant to do that, is to not give our consent for anything. I even think the resistance, even what I'm doing here when I highlight these things, is actually still playing into their hands. Because
you're just drawing attention to the topic that they want you to.
That's right. That's right. And it kind of confirms our inability to act in an effective way. That's what I kind of think. You know.
But that's ideological subversion. Part of ideological subversion is to create confusion, so truth means nothing. And this is why we're getting these sideshow things. I mean, there's some bozo. It's like I think these they call it 77 Brigade. I think it's probably something else. And I think their job is to hype up weird conspiracies. Like there's two that's floating around at the moment. One was that Stonehenge was built in the 1950s. Complete bunk.
Yeah, it's true. That my dad worked on that.
Yeah. Well, no, I actually went to Stonehenge with my parents when I was a kid, and they actually had a little exhibition on the side where you could see photographs of them reconstructing it in the 50s. It's just an open book. And the other one is that World War I and World War II didn't really happen. It's all done with fake explosions and loudspeakers. Well, quite honestly, I think our parents would have had something to say about that because, I mean, it's bonkers. But I think it originates from government circles. They're putting all this nonsense into the mix so that it's a misdirection. Whilst people are looking at that and arguing about that, they're not seeing what is really going on. And it's to create confusion all the time.
Like you were talking about you and your friend going in and arguing, making theater so that it just distracts the customer and, something's being done.
Well, stallholders used to do that years ago. I mean, that was, if it was a bit quiet and there's not many people, they'd actually have a fake argument between each other. Oh, shout and holler at each other. It draws a crowd. And you go down any market and I don't know if it's the same, it probably is the same in America. Markets are still around because they're trying to close them. We're in this country. The old stall holders used to do that all the time when it got a bit quiet. And the other one that they did was they would actually act as customers to each other when they're not really buying anything because a crowd draws a crowd.
So Eric, do you think this is a theatrical tactic we could use? Should we not be going out and having mock arguments in public places? You swine! That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, the old stallholders, I haven't seen it with the younger ones, but I know that the old Barra boys, the generation I think that's gone, because my granddad was a greengrocer and had a stall selling fruit and veg. And that's what he apparently used to do with his friends. They used to shout and holler at each other as if they were in this massive argument with their best of friends. And again, people look round, they think, what's going on? These are all little tricks that they do.
Well, it's the old Hegelian dialectic. Or you have your thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. And you've decided the synthesis all along, but you have to present it to the public so that they'll accept it when that they won't if you just were to outright say we're going to do this. It's because you're going from a monarchy to a democracy. You have to lead people more than you do if you have just absolute power over a government, let's say. And then another term for it is pill pull.
Yes.
PILPUL, where you just hair split everything to death until nobody challenges anything you have to say eventually.
But
it's hair splitting. It's hair splitting on steroids forever. That's the whole purpose of it. It just literally wears everybody out. It just goes on and on and on, and it's pickiness. Yeah.
You've got to watch every word you say now because you could end up in jail. You could actually end up being arrested for some of the things you say. I mean, jokes and things that you used to be able to say.
Is it much different than the past? Because in the past, you had to watch your mouth and be respectful and mind your manners and all this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you would end up in deep trouble.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you could say what you wanted about certain things.
I'm not getting on that ship to go to war. Yeah, okay. There.
Well, no, there's a thing called the defeatist. In World War II, you were labelled as a defeatist if you said anything truthful. So you're a defeatist. And the other one is in the First World War. Anybody that again said the truth would be given a white feather.
The white feather ladies, yeah.
Yeah. It's
to shame
horrendous.
them. Yeah. But then again, what was the punishment for that? And then was it worth it? Because you'd save your life in a way by being a coward, more or less. You call it. You're not a coward, obviously, if you're standing up for the truth. But if you're, what was the punishment for that? If you were given the white feather and that sort of thing.
Well, it wasn't really a punishment because there was
forced to eat sprouts for a month, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or live next to somebody who eats sprouts.
Yeah.
For a month.
Well, the strange thing is that I know that conscientious objectors they were sent to jail and they were treated very harshly, very, very harshly. Sure. But they weren't treated as bad in the Second World War. But again, the police would do them for anything at all. And I know there's a chap whose father was in the Merchant Navy, and he was on the Arctic convoys and went through, U-boat alley and all those places backwards and forwards to America. And because he was in civilian clothing, He came off his ship, went into a pub, and a woman spat in his face, and he'd just been through hell and back to get the supplies through from America. So, people that were in civilian clothes, they were often branded as cowards and all kinds of things. They got a lot of slack a lot of hit back. And just think, this chap had been through hell, yet because he wasn't in a military uniform, he got spat at. So it's terrible the way crowds behave.
It's better to get spat at than shot or bombed or any of the other things that could happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrendous.
Yes.
But at least you could run to another country, like what they used to do, apparently, is go to Northern Ireland and then leg it over the border. But of course, you've got to have money to look after yourself. And a lot of people of military age worked in hotels in Southern Ireland to earn money so as to get out of the war. And I know that during the Vietnam War, the place to go was Canada or Sweden. And you could get out of it that way because Sweden had and Canada, they had an amnesty for draft dodgers. That no longer exists.
Yeah, they did. It's true.
Yeah, and apparently the Canadian economy and the Swedish economy went through the roof. It was brilliant. They was really booming because of it, because they were getting the cream from America going there. So, we don't want to go in the army, and that's why one of the reasons why the Canadian economy boomed so much, and so did Swedish.
Well, and then it went socialist because Trudeau came in at that time around the late 60s and the early 70s, and made it.
Yes, are they going to throw Justin Trudeau through the roof? Hopefully. There's some strange things going on over there, aren't there, with what he's...
I don't know, it is kind of strange, yeah.
The speed with which he's wrecking...
They're not allowing Netanyahu to visit because he's a war criminal, and it's kind of weird. It
is weird. There's wokeness. It's getting woke. There are people now, you can't be woke enough or something, so it's all odd. It is odd. I'm sure it's all part of the intended confusion. Of course, they're doing quite a good job of it. I wanted to move on to... We can come back to that, but I wanted to move on to something that I came across a little bit earlier today about a topic we've not talked about too much, but is right at the top of it's right in that clutch of things that are really important. It's to do with net migration into the UK, and you're going to have similar sorts of situations, I guess, or parallels, Patrick, with regards to the US and what's going on there. This is from an article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a couple of bits. It's actually buried in a bigger article by Martin Webster, who used to be part of the National Front back in the 1960s and 70s. I'm not going to comment on him, but the article itself is quite good, and there are some very good comments afterwards, and I just wanted to sort of jump on this a little bit, or at least bring it up. This is from a Daily Telegraph article, Friday the 29th of November, so a couple of weeks back. It says, net migration hit record high of almost 1 million last year. Spending on asylum also reached a record £5.38 billion, up 36% by Charles Hymas. And I'll just go through a few of the little salient facts. Net migration hit a record high of nearly 1 million, 170,000 more than previously thought. Updated estimates from the Office for National Statistics have revealed net migration, the number of people entering the UK minus those leaving, reached 906,000 in the year ending June 2023, according to the ONS. The decline, I'm just jumping ahead, the decline covers the year before the election when the Tories cracked down on migration, apparently, with measures including bans on foreign workers and students, bringing dependents, increases in the skilled worker salary, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on and on and on about what they're going to do now. It's one of these sort of dry articles that you read from time to time, but all the facts are correct, and you're not supposed to get too excited about it. Something else is going to be done. Don't worry, everybody. It's all going to be done. He goes on, he says, Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, said, a 20% drop in immigration since June 2023 is a result of the changes I fought for and introduced in May 2023 as Home Secretary. Yawn. That's when we started to turn the tide. But 1.2 million arrivals a year is still too high. Hello?
Well, you work hand in hand with Americans going over and bombing the crap out of these countries. What do you expect to happen? And they're doing it hand in hand for that reason, so that then they can justify, we need to bring them in because we bombed the heck out of them, or the Americans bombed the heck out of them, and it wasn't us. It was,
Yeah, I mean, it's full of these sort of cack-handed double-meaning statements. The last one in this article from the Telegraph says, this is Braverman speaking. Oh, no, hang on. Is this Alp Mehmet, the chairman of Migration Watch UK, said something or other. The last quote being, meanwhile, the changing nature of society that inevitably follows rapid mass immigration will put the cohesion we have long enjoyed at ever greater risk. These sentences, the way that they phrase things, as if rapid mass immigration is a problem that we've had for ages. It's not. It's actually not a problem. It's actually by design, as we, of course, all well know. And one of the things that the article surrounding this article comments upon is all this complete litany of total broken promises and the control and manipulation of the communication space, which it always is. I was trying to find something here about, there's a little bit here, where's Maggie gone? There's a little bit about Margaret Thatcher. Oh, no, let me read this a little bit before we get on to that. So it says, the Tories have lied about immigration since the 1950s. And Webster writes, he says, the Conservatives have been lying to the indigenous British people about restricting immigration since the days of, and here he is, he has to make an appearance, of the last Winston Churchill-led administration in the 1950s. By deploying a mixture of intimidation and bribery, that last Churchill government frustrated an effort by Sir Cyril Osborne, MP, to get the issue of coloured immigration debated in the House of Commons. How interesting and not surprising. For full details of how they did that, see the last chapter of historian Andrew Roberts. He's the guy who's very expert on Napoleon. Andrew Roberts' 1994 book, Eminent Churchillians, which is a very great worry. I don't know whether I should go and read it. Maybe I ought to. The chapter includes this memorable sentence. This is from Roberts. And so, the greatest demographic change in the entire history of the British nation was achieved without any democratic ratification whatever. Now, I know many people know this, but it's good to have these sort of source documents to back this stuff up and to see who said what. And he goes on, Webster says, I should now add that Lord Roberts, now wishes he had never written that book. As he has become a professional lickspittle and Tory party toady. I'm editing some of the things I'm saying for transmission purposes, okay? You'll find the article on unz.com, unz.com, and it's very well worth reading. It says decades ago, Roberts was right-wing enough to entertain Ian Smith, then the Prime Minister of Rhodesia, to dinners at his posh Chelsea home on occasions when Smith was in London to negotiate with the British government over Rhodesia's unilateral declaration of independence. Smith's government had declared its UDI in order to escape the catastrophe of black majority rule that was inflicted upon South Africa. So this is a very touchy topic, of course. It's been made touchier and touchier and touchier till you can't even address it at all. But the article is excellent. In terms of just summing up how the communication space is totally manipulated. I just want to get onto this bit about Margaret Thatcher as well. Is a little subhead. It says, Thatcher's sympathy for those who feared Britain was being swamped. In the run-up to the 1979 general election, I remember that one, the Conservative leader Margaret Thatcher declared on TV how much she, quote, sympathised with those who feared that Britain was being swamped by immigration, thereby implying that if elected, she would take action to allay those fears. Oh. It was by that trick that she drew to the Conservative Party votes which might otherwise have gone to the National Front, which had 303 candidates standing in that election. Now, I was a teenager at the time and thought the National Front was completely evil because I was the result of brainwashing. But you at least know that I never voted for any political party. I had the good sense to not do that. It says, only 7 weeks after the Conservatives' election victory, Mrs. Thatcher allowed thousands of Vietnamese refugees to flood into Britain. So the first of the boat people, and I'd forgotten all about this, but yes, the boat people arrived in Britain's shores in 1979, not decades later, as many people imagine. Thatcher justified this betrayal on the grounds that the Vietnamese were entrepreneurs. She was a one for cupboards full of cash. On arrival, many of these Vietnamese did indeed turn to money-making enterprises, most notably, as numerous court reports bear witness, the factory-scale production of illegal drugs such as cannabis. They accelerated the growth of cannabis plants by using powerful lighting systems illegally linked to other people's electric power supply. Very, very entrepreneurial indeed. So it's an excellent article to fill in on a lot of data if you want it, and I kind of did. I really enjoyed going through it. I mean, his closing little statement is, and of course this is Webster writing. He says, a new and radical approach to reversing the treason and subversion that has been foisted on the indigenous British people and white people generally, this is true, must be commenced, and very soon. The questions arise: does a vehicle exist to achieve that purpose? If not, how can it be constructed? What methods should it employ? And I wrestled with this quite a bit on my seaside walks. How is it to be achieved? Can it be achieved? Are the people of Britain sufficiently tuned in to the real problem to be able to even listen to any solutions? I think it's that bad, you see. Any thoughts on that, Eric?
Well, I think that we're a bit like a puppy dog that's been kicked down. Mm-hmm. That's what's happened. And over the years, we've had this non-stop brainwashing. And I think it goes back before 1945. I think it goes back to the 1920s and 30s as well, where we're conditioned to be like little lambs that please, sir, can I have more? You know, that type of thing. But the way they've managed to swamp our population with other cultures and that type of thing, which, as you quite rightly said on my show, that it's not good for anybody, for the people that's coming here and the indigenous population. But what is their objective at the end? What is their main? Okay, they want to wipe out our culture. That's obvious that they want to do. But again, what is their ultimate? Once they've wiped out our culture, then what is their objective? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Is it that they're just completely and utterly sadistic and just want to create problems for people? Is it they're so bored that just, they've got so much money they don't want to do with it? So I know, let's create problems and let's create stress with people. Let's build and build and build and build and build so that nobody's got any countryside to look out on, and all they do is just fall over each other because it's such a dense population.
Yeah.
Again, nothing but people have been brainwashed into accepting it. That's the most strangest thing. You look, what happened during the last 4 years, the lockdown. People just went along with it, and I think it's because we have just had the guts knocked out of us. I don't.
Well, I think it's definitely part of it. It's been very slow. It's been incremental. It's been in full gear since 1945. Really, they just moved into it almost immediately, as fast as they possibly could. And I think the other onslaught that we've had to deal with is TV. TV didn't exist pre-World War II, did it? And it didn't even exist that much in the 50s. But once TV got up and running over here, and we had our magnificent 2 channels, one I suppose to start off with, they've just been able to make hay and twist and push everything away from its root source and a natural expression of culture, and to prepare it, as it were, for world socialism. And I was talking earlier in the week, and I'll let me just find this. I was talking earlier in the week about Charlotte Iserbyt.
Charlotte Iserbyt, yeah.
Yeah. Who passed away in 2000.
The deliberate dumbing down of America.
The deliberate dumbing down of America. And this is a key part of it. And maybe someone's written the deliberate dumbing down of the UK. If not, we could just interchange what she's talking about. But she talks about the role of the Carnegie Foundation, Andrew Carnegie, and the Rockefeller Foundation or Institute or whatever it was, playing a key role from the 1920s onwards to create stupefied, dim-witted American students. And they've succeeded. They've also succeeded here. And the aim of all this was to prepare people to become part of a world socialist government. It's the same thing. Because you can't actually bring in a high trust culture into a world that's going to be governed by central authority, which is really obviously what they've been doing all the time. So that's why I think, Eric, I think it's a major component about the indifference of huge numbers of people to the outcome of their own life, because the tools for thought have not been given to them. The education system is not that. So it's a cumulative effect of all these power centres being perverted, subtly undermined and worn down over decades. I mean, we're talking the last 50 years. If we go back 50 years, where are we? 1975, 1974. I mean, I was a teenager then. This is all really amazing to me. But it has happened. It's definitely happened, you know?
Can I want to interject a factoid here about Suella Braverman. Right? She's what is she? Your Home Secretary, or she?
I think she was. She was.
I
think. Yeah.
So she's nothing now. I was just reading about her husband, Rael Braverman. He's like a manager at Mercedes,
right?
Corporation. I find it interesting because that name rung a bell with me, because it was Eric Braverman was the head of the Clinton Foundation, and Alan Braverman was the head of Walt Disney. So,
right,
it's likely they're all related to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it
well,
that
likely
way.
They are.
And Rael just became a member of the Reform Party with Nigel Farage.
They've been lined up to take over, you see. Farage is now... These are these long narratives. So he's evil, he's terrible, and all this kind of stuff. So many conservatives are now jumping over to that. That won't make any difference either. None of this is going to make any difference, because they won't attack the money power. They won't attack the usurers.
And that's what they did when the Fed came into being here with the biography of Lindbergh. I read about the Republicans being split into the House, just the regular oligarchic Republicans, and then the insurgent Republicans being the progressive wing of the Republicans. Like it was Charles belonged to the insurgent Republicans. Yep. And then the Democrats were just the Democrats, and they start wars. That's what the Democrat Party does, is they start wars. World War
they do
I,
do
World
that,
War
don't
II,
they?
Vietnam.
Yep.
The only maybe Iraq was different, Afghanistan, but the current wars, with Joe Biden, Genocide Joe, they call him.
Yeah.
For good reason. And it's the same old system. It's divide and conquer. It's the pill pull. Oh, yeah, okay, we got Punch and Judy here, the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're you're gonna be rah Trump. He's gonna save us from the evil Democrats. Ooh, the demon rats. And it's all a show. It's all meant to keep you distracted from them lining their pockets with your hard-earned labor and your hours and your work. Well, they start these wars, and then they can it's justified to bring them all in here because we're Christians now, and let's do the Christian thing and welcome them, and they use it as a convenient weapon to club you to death, so that you're just dizzy and you can't do anything about it. But if you actually pay attention and look into these people, look into their biography, find out who they are, where they're coming from, you'll find out that it's a plan. These people sit and plan things like Klaus Schwab, the shareholder economy. That's like you say, the shareholders should be the people that hold the shares in the Bank of England or the Bank of America or whatever it is.
It should be you, yeah. I mean, but obviously...
But these shareholders are, they're like the Bilderberg Group or one of these, Council on Foreign Relations or Trilateral Commission or whatever it is.
There's a very good comment under this. There's many good comments, actually. There's one from... I'm going to verbally edit this as I go through. You'll understand why. From Dragoslav. It's comment number 6 on this article, if you see it. He says... And how exactly do you end the money power? They have infested, as you say, every Western institution. So how do you remove the money power parasites when all your tools have been taken away from you? Army, police, justice, finance, academy, religious centres, culture, everything. This is true. And this is a point we've mentioned here before. Exceptional men from the past really exceptional men who had power have tried, and ultimately they failed. Not that those parasites are superior, but you can't fight criminal gangs like this if you don't want to fall at their level. It is a dilemma. It is a dilemma. Because you see, this thing about addressing it and communicating it, we're kind of tying ourselves up further in more of their chains, as it were, by seeking to get it off. I'm putting attention on it. Now, I think we have to do some of that. But the bit that's missing here, and in all other shows, I'm going to practically, is how are we to organize ourselves to restore our way of life? Because it's not our way of life. We don't want this, right? We didn't ask for it. Nobody even asked us if we wanted it. And the answer is no, we don't. So we have to find a way of not consenting. And it just sounds piffle when I say it. It's just a word. Okay, I don't consent. It has to it's got to physicalize. It has to turn into something where people go, enough. And the sad truth at the moment is that not enough people are able to say no, because they don't even know really what's going on. They're just keeping their heads down as everything's slowly getting burnt up around our ears. I still maintain, another argument that's raised multiple times in the comment thread here, which is a good one, is to do with, this argument that's always put to us about business owners looking for cheap labor. And therefore, the super capitalists and all these multinational corporations want these countries flooded with immigrants and stuff that they can pay less wages to keep their business ticking over and make a profit. Yet again, we see that kind of all roads lead to Mammon. People have been inducted into going into the temple of Mammon without even knowing it. Can't live without going there now. All of these, it's very similar to a religion. It's got its holy shrines.
All streams lead to Calcutta.
Yeah, that is the same thing. Absolutely, it is that, so you've got stock exchanges and foreign exchanges and stock markets and this, that and the other and blah, blah. And it's all part of this great shrine to the god Mammon, a service which we don't need. Well, this is a big idea to get across to people because everybody's just locked in. But I've got to earn money. Well, we know that. Today you do. No one's saying don't do that. But a lot of people actually can't. Because and that number's going to increase because that's what they're after, to literally squeeze your ability to function as a dignified human being away from, without their help. Oh, don't worry, we'll help you. Okay, yeah, but you're the ones that caused all these problems so that you can turn up and give me this help. Why don't you just bugger off completely? But of course, they're not going to do that. Me just saying those words doesn't make any difference at all. Not to them.
Yeah, we fear the wrong thing. We should be fearing God, and then you don't have to fear what men can do to you. You definitely have that problem because most people are fearful. They think, they're all worried about the economy. Let's not have, and families don't form as a consequence because the women are fearful that the men can't provide for them. So they go out and they find a job and work and they put it all off and they think they got to have a huge salary, huge estate, and before they can start having children. And it's like, no, God provides you with those things as you need them, as long as you do what's right and just, and you're not there just to, capitalize off of someone else's misery. You're gonna be okay. And that's part of the problem. People are too fearful when they're too ignorant, and we have a lot of that. We have too much ignorance. People don't study.
Spot on. And also, they're too comfortable as well. Sorry to cut in there.
Please do.
No, they're too comfortable. People won't do anything until it personally affects them. When it affects them, then they might do something. When they go to the supermarket and the shelves are empty, they might do something then. But I know what's going to happen. The shelves are going to be full of junk food. You will not be able to buy any proper food. It'll all be rubbish, snacks and highly processed muck. That's what they're after. So that the big pharma makes a huge profit as people get more and more sick. And that, I think, is the name of the game. I'm sorry to say that, but it appears to be.
Yeah, well, like if the wages went up, we wouldn't have so much of a problem too. You have people who could afford to build to do all these things, and the wages will go up when the people who have the money finally decide that when they can.
Well, when you've done away with usury, that's the thing. Usury is
exactly.
just like it's like a vacuum cleaner. It's sucking out people's salary and ability. I mean, have you noticed how you look at the 1960s, how creative that time was? Very, very creative. Now look at it, there's no creativity hardly at all. It's horrendous. And
It's true.
and that's all been stifled. And the thing is that I don't like leaders as such, but a good leader, actually, he's there to help the creative people along. He creates creativity, whereas a bad leader stifles creativity because they're there for their ego and they're frightened they're going to be outdone. And if you notice that government after government stifles creativity all the time, it's only the big multinational companies that can do creative things. The small man doesn't stand an earthly. They're at if Henry Ford, if the cars had never been invented, started today with all the legislation, you'd have got nowhere. He could go forward because it had so little legislation. And, that's the thing. Everything is this country worse than America, I think. So much legislation.
There's definitely, I think, an economic force in all of this, in the sense that people they have been trained, all of us have been inducted into this commercial system, which when you first bump into it seems to make sense. I'll give you some of my time and you give me some money back. And on a very simple level, that's fine. It's an exchange of goods and services, not a problem. But in a mature, supposed economy like this one, it's really just full of deceptions and deceits. And of course, huge numbers of people are completely clueless about the control of it all. There's a little quote here in a letter. It says, as the governor of the Bank of England said, mass immigration reduces labour costs. Oh, well, we'll just do that then. That's important. Must be important then. Let's do that. It also greatly increases housing incomes. Oh, well, we want that too. As rents and house prices boom in the absence of redistribution of jobs to areas with high housing availability. This whole frame set of thinking is understandable why people think this way, but it's completely useless. Because it's as if the whole purpose, this is what everybody's in, is to keep the economy strong. Well, if you want to do that, just get rid of usury. We actually don't know what is effective because we're involved in this big locked-in game where you are compelled to do stupid things to earn some money, blah, 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 blah. What is the point of having loads of money if the civilization in which you have earned it no longer exists and no longer is producing goods and services that you want? Well, I've got millions now. Yeah, but there's nothing to buy, mate, because you've crushed all the workers. No one can be bothered to do anything because they're so demoralized. The whole thing's idiotic. So, in very simple terms, it just comes down to, I know it's really sort of basic comic book stuff, but it's uncontrolled, rampant greed amongst people that are able to exercise that power. So, and this is the arguments that are always trotted out, So whenever the finance minister comes out, they'll always get a good cheer. If this, and we're going to put money into this, and that's going to boost that. This. I don't know if you've got the phrase over there, Patrick, but over here, there is a type of person called a NIMBY, an NIMBY. Do you have
not
NIMBYs?
In my backyard?
That's right. And it's a derogatory term in common parlance. You're not supposed to be a NIMBY. Well, I'm a NIMBY with regards to everything, practically. I think we need the NIMBYist movement is actually common sense for everyone on practically every matter. So there's a woman over here called Julia Hartley Brewer. I was going to play the clip, but I thought I wouldn't put you through that. Look, I don't have a view either way. She probably says some sensible things and things that I don't agree with. But the clip I caught the other day, she was talking with somebody else about the housing shortage and we must have more houses. No. Go into that area that you daren't think in. Why do we need more houses? All these people that are coming here. Oh, I see. So am I stupid to apply logic like don't have these people come here? So the next argument is, no, we need them here to run our economy. Our economy will fail.
Yeah,
no.
Well, to pay your dividends.
That's so it's a domino effect in false logic. One lie goes into the next, and there's so many of them, and they're in such a line that everybody thinks it must be a coherent, sensible thing to say. Well, it is when you have to live under usury. Of course it is. Because this application of interest rates on debts, applying interest to a loan, puts in it a false activity into the economy. Everybody's really active, doing things because the economy, and most of what people are doing is just to hold the system together so they can keep on reporting all these stupid figures. I mean, if it's the case from this Telegraph article that they've spent $5.3 billion on dealing with migrants, why? I didn't ask them to do that. What's the point of that? And because we don't have any say in the management of our national bank, because therefore it's not ours, we don't have an ownership stake in it, it's been run at the behest of private interests, and they've dressed all these stories up for centuries and people believe them. It's a complete myth. The whole space is a fiction because it's got nothing to do with actually producing good benefits for people, at the base. Because it can't.
I agree with you.
It just can't do it.
And also, and have you noticed that once upon a time, when you was at school, it was a career. A person's going to have a career. Now it's a job. And when you look around, I would say the majority of people are doing work that they hate, that they don't want to do. And the only work that's around now, and I don't know if it's probably the similar in America, unless you're self-employed, is delivery driver or flipping burgers in a burger bar, or stacking shelves in the supermarket. That's about it. There's nothing extra, and what they've done. I mean, for example, architecture has been completely fouled up because
can't afford the buildings, Eric. Can't afford these fancy buildings, Eric. They're too expensive.
Well, no, what it is because of CAD, and also there was a massive Eastern Europeans coming over here that took rates that are about half of what anybody else would take.
Yeah.
And it's all done on computer, so there's less people involved, and of course the design time is an overhead, so they try and cut the design.
Well, it's all rent seeking.
The minimal.
They're all trying to make rent, make money, profit out of their rent.
That's right.
Rental properties. These ugly monstrosities of like the Bauhaus architectural school, where it's just functionality and there's no soul to it, and it's all about making money off of the occupants. It's this kind of the same thing of what Donald Trump was doing here and how he got his start. He's a rent seeker. He's built all of these, big apartment complexes for workers and building skyscraper apartment complexes and trying to get into the Manhattan market and all this kind of stuff. It's all rent seeking because that once you build something, it's just a matter of maintenance, and then you get what it's a vulture type system, because then you're preying off of these people and their misfortunes.
You mentioned Bauhaus. I mean, I call it Bowel House because
Bowel
House, because that's what comes out of it. And really, I've got some photographs that I took a couple of weeks ago of a structure that's going up near where I live. They're building on a beautiful field that could, that did grow crops at one time, but not any longer.
Potato
and
fields.
It's a Google place, and it's demonic because it's got no windows in it, and they're just grey, battleship grey. So you look out, and you've got a grey sky, grey buildings. It's just depressing, awful. And they've been about a year working on it. I don't know what the hell they're doing there, but what gets me is they're building on farmland, and we need farmland for food. So what they're doing, we're importing it. So we're getting stuff that's imported, that's brought halfway around the world, which goes against their idea of being eco, because once upon a time, the food was grown locally and sold locally. Now, you walk around a supermarket, and most of the stuff is from Spain and
Nigeria.
Nigeria, yeah. Well, they don't put Nigeria on it. It's mainly Chile it's from now, and Spain, and the Netherlands is not that far away.
Yeah. Hold that thought, Eric, because we're at the top of it. We're just about to depart from our WBN feed, and I'm just going to play a song in a few seconds' time. So you've been listening to Paul English Live here on WBN for the last couple of hours. I hope you have. We'll of course be back again this time next week, 3 p.m. US Eastern, 8 p.m. UK. I've been joined by Eric and Patrick. So far, we don't know what's going to go on. You can always call in afterwards. We're going to carry on Rumble. I'm going to play you out with this song from, I don't know if I've ever played this one before. Anyway, one of my favourite bands, and somebody wrote to me about them the other day. This is from about 1980. How about that? 45 years old. This is the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and they really are, I think, quite fabulous. We'll be back after this song on the other side. Join us on Rumble if you'd like.
Tipping in. Let's walk on down there, baby. That's where the fun begins. But let me take you just one more time. Ooh-wee. You know you sent me, baby. Let's go in here. Now, suck it to me. To me now. Oh, shit.
And welcome back. We're still rumbling along here on Rumble. We're still going out on Radio Soapbox and elsewhere. I'm here with Patrick and Eric. If you feel like calling in, by the way, you always can. You go to paulenglishlive.com/call. It'll bring you into here with the other reprobates, and you can say your piece if you've got one to say. That band, as I said, is the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Interestingly, if you're not that I necessarily expect loads of people to either heard of them or know of them, although maybe it's the case, they're actually touring here. They've been going for donkey's years, actually.
Wow.
Changing the line. Yeah, I think in January, somebody just wrote to me.
Jimmy Bond?
No, he left a long time ago. But
did he?
Okay. Yeah, he did. Kim Wilson is still heading up the band. He's the harmonica player. And he was my inspiration when I was about 18 or 19. We started listening to all their stuff. And we used to do that song in Northern Working Men's Clubs when I was about 19 and 20. It was a lot of fun. Written by Slim Harpo.
Yeah,
for those of you who want to know such things, right? But it's a groove. He was from Tennessee, I think. Or was it Louisiana? I don't know. It's a groovy little number. I like groovy. Groovy's a good word. And that's groovy, and it's easy listening, and the lyrics don't make any sense at all, and it doesn't matter. It's just a little sort of break from all the serious stuff, and you need it every now and again. So, yeah, they're touring over here. If you want to go see them, they'll probably be still pretty damn good. I think they're a 5 or 6 piece now. So, but they've got... they've got a lot of music under their belt. And Dave Edmunds produced their biggest album. I think that was in the late 70s, Tough Enough, which was it early 80s? I can't remember. Yeah, early 80s,
early
actually.
80s.
It was, yeah. I'm just thinking. It's when I first moved down to London town. I bought it in Virgin Records on Tottenham Court Road, or was it Oxford Street? Whatever it is, down there, when we used to go out and buy music albums. And, that's what we did back then. Anyway, here we are. So, yeah.
But what we're going to do positively, you see, my attitude is that those in control are terrified of humour. That's why they're trying to destroy it. So we need to keep on laughing at them, laughing, and then load a, shall we say, put a joke up the breech and fire a joke at them, because the more we laugh, the quicker we'll bring them down. I'm positive we will. And that's our only weapon. Laugh and keep laughing at them. So I just wonder what you think of this, Paul or Patrick.
Well, I'm like, I like your idea there. We gotta laugh at it, otherwise we'll just cry ourselves into depression.
Stop it.
Yeah. But you had a funny joke. Alex Jones has this thing where women's birth control is getting in the water and turning the frogs gay, right? What was that joke you were telling about the woman drinking pond water?
Oh, that's right. She was washed down with a pill when she went to the doctors, and he said, "You're 6 months stagnant."
Well, I do think
you got to make fun of them.
We do. I think there's got. I think there's got to be sort of two sides. I don't know. We've got to go from laughing our socks to then having faces like thunder a split second later, so that we're very worrying. I don't know what I'm talking. Something different, something that we've not really identified has got to come along. As we mentioned before, I think in the past, if we go back into the last century, obviously they were resolving things by having men getting slaughtered on battlefields. Now they're having us getting slaughtered by slow, steady economic asphyxiation. I mean, it's obvious.
They are still I wouldn't call it a battlefield, what's happening in Gaza or Ukraine, where you just carpet bomb people. I mean, they were doing that in World War II, you know that, and in Vietnam and all these other wars. It's definitely changed somewhat.
But what about using psychological warfare, which is more effective? Now, what they did in Sweden, it was brilliant. They made a dummy up of a politician who I can't remember what it was, but everybody was against, and dressed in a black suit. And they did, those pictures of Mussolini when they hung him upside down, and they just hung this dummy up, and with a real life-size face of like this politician upside down, I think on a lamp outside the Parliament building. Psychologically, it would look really sinister. Now, you imagine if that was hung from a footbridge. Just think how sinister that would be.
During the lockdowns in Michigan, they did that. To the Capitol, they had a hangman's noose in the back of someone's F-150 pickup, and they went down there, basically denouncing the governor's orders to lock down. And it's this lesbian governor they have there, Gretchen Whitmer. She's just the ugly witch of a lady, and. And then they tried to use the FBI to go after the people that were doing that, and tried to say they were trying to assassinate her.
My word.
Yeah, it has its repercussions, but at the same time, what they're doing is, mass murder. So what do you do with people who mass murder? It's making fun of them is kind of the least of their worries. When you come down to it, it's like something has to be done.
Well, you see, I think the humor's important.
Knows.
I think the humor's important, not because of the effect it would have on them. We don't have any effect on them. That's none, absolutely none. They're unaffectable because they're not fully formed human beings. I mean that they are. I know we throw these words
above
around.
It all.
Well, they're psychopaths and sociopaths. They really are, and many of them probably are carrying wounds from when they were children. All these public schools, there's a long tradition of it in this country of producing
but it's no excuse
these.
For what they're doing, though, Paul. That's the
no,
problem.
It isn't. But we still can't get
sit
through to them, Patrick. How are you supposed to convince a callous, emotionless, disregarding, self-centered, cunning, psychopathic mentality that you're worth something? That all they're interested in is what's in it for them. So we haven't developed some kind of a screening or an immune system process to get them out of the bloodstream. That's really what it is. I mean, the thing I liken to the bloodstream mainly is, money, because it is. It's like the conduit it's causing energy to go from one party to another gazillions of times per second now, right, all over the place.
Well, what do you think about non-participation? Just don't participate. I remember listening to on Rentz's show Dr. Leonard Caldwell out of Germany.
Yeah,
and he had this proposition that everybody, when it comes time to vote for politicians, they go out and they vote, and it's the lesser of two evils. He said, don't do that. Basically, what you're doing is you're giving them a mandate to power. If you go there and you decide you're not going to vote, and you get these politicians that get elected, and they only have 8% of the total population voting for them. What kind of power mandate do they have? And if they recognize that only 8% of the people agree with them, and the rest of them are against them, or don't even care, they're going to be less likely to think that they have a mandate to power. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think we have to do both, you
but,
see. I think we have to do both. I think we have to disassociate from them, and we have to define. There has to be kind of a quick process for doing it, because I'm beginning to feel in my own, it's like when you're around this topic for a long time, you get to the point where you think, is this just the passing of wind all the time? Because you've got to look out there and see that you might be having an effect. Now, I'm not a pessimist by nature. I'm not. I'm not pessimistic. I still remain, hopefully, rationally and sensibly optimistic about what can be done, even though I can't actually iterate to you exactly what it is. I'm looking around for other people to iterate what it is, and I don't hear it from them either. We've got lots of bright people that are basically, I think, involved in a process of describing the problem with ever greater detail and accuracy. Great, fine. I guess that's some use. But I think we got past our sell-by date on that quite some time ago. We are looking for a behavioral shift in us. I think that's what and an attitudinal shift, and an embracing of spiritual law, or whatever you want. We need that. I'm very convinced that is the case, that there is actually literally a spiritual war taking place down here, but most conversations never get to that point, because our attitude, what we want in life, I suspect, although most of us, I guess, come up short on this, is we want to live in a place where there's generosity and kindness and good behavior between people. And you cannot achieve that when you've mixed up lots of different races on the same bit of real estate. As I said, I'm a locationist. I don't know how the other people really truly want to operate, because I'm not one of them. But if I was an Eskimo and we were doing Eskimo radio and I was using all the 50 words for snow, I'd know exactly what we wanted as Eskimos, because it would be in my bones. That would be the hand I got dealt. So it's wonderful, by the way. I mean, I'm not knocking all this detailed breakdown of stuff, but it's as if it's still not harnessed to something right. And it can't be the political route. I just don't see how it could be. Because all the good people that have ever gone in there get chewed up by the rats that are already there and in the sack. So we do need the humour. We need to not consent to them. In other words, we do need to disconnect from their system. But we're now faced with the same process as an alcoholic coming off of alcohol, or a smoker coming off of cigarettes.
You need a place to go.
We need a buffer zone. We need a transition process, and that's what we don't. We don't know how to do it. We don't know what is the best way to.
was there to provide in your country at one point, but
it was. But this radio show is here to provide that, or others. It's just all it is a communication point where hopefully some intelligence is going to come up, and more than one person is going to recognize it and go, "Well, that feels right." And it has to be relatively simple because it's got to transmit to huge numbers of people. Now, maybe I'm doolally. Maybe you can't transmit something like this to huge numbers of people. I mean, they can. They're holding finance, and with finance, they've bought the media and everything we look at, blah, blah, blah. And we have become more and more adjusted to the very sophisticated levels of the game that they're playing, which is that they provide us continually with both sides of the argument. Oh, no, Nigel Farage is going to save us. No. Oh, this man's going to save us. No, 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 no. They're not. We have to find this way of restoring ourselves and becoming the authorities back in our own lives. I do think for us as Western Christian people, and as I said, my definition of a Christian is a racial type. We're a race. This, of course, is absolutely abhorrent to most people who call themselves Christians. They think I'm barking mad, but I haven't found anything in Scripture to contradict that. But that's it, really. I think it's very important. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist.
You look in biblical scriptures about the word race and what it means. It's basically following in the lineage of a particular patriarch. And,
well, it is,
and that's what it is. But at the same time, it's given an evil connotation because of Mr. Adolf back in the World War II, the loser, the loser. It's easy to project onto the loser what all the evils of society and what.
Yes, and that's exactly what's happened in that case. I mean, it's non-stop.
Yeah, because they're not there to defend themselves.
I know.
I
know. We're 80 years after next year will be 80 years for the end of that conflict. 80 years.
Yeah. Well, there's also in the church's history, the Catholic Church, they dig up Pope's corpse. The Pope's corpse and put it on trial. It's like, that's the level of people's guilt and, the people in power needing to prove themselves right and just so that they have a mandate to rule because they need that from the populace. Otherwise, they're impotent.
I think another big gap in normal people's understanding is who the real enemy is. We don't need to, many people know. Right. It might not be one central core, but there is an attitude. It is spiritual wickedness in high places. And we've got history record. Now that we've had the net to see, as Tom Goodrich devoted his life to, providing the account from the losing side. If you haven't read that or know of it, it doesn't matter what period of history, you're actually massive. You haven't got an understanding at all. All you've got up to that point is propaganda. You must counterbalance it with other sides. You have to, if you want to sort of have any chance of acquiring even an ounce of wisdom about the whole thing. So you can, And that's, why I was stressing, I guess, earlier on, that obviously his book, Hellstorm, with regards to that period, does just that. It provides the hellish view from the other side. And you begin to see that it was a war of extermination of the German people. A colossal number of them died between 1914. Their losses were far higher than the British in the First World War and far, far higher than ours in the Second World War, and we know about this. And this is why I think it still rings, and it's going to ring for a long time, this period of history, because we're not talking about some two-bit no-good country. We're talking about the country which at the time had the highest wealth per capita anywhere in the world after having come out of the doo-doo of the Weimar Republic. And of course, therefore, you're not allowed to look at the economic tactics, let's call them that they employed to do that. Because, as I've mentioned here before, were we able to employ them, and we must discuss and find ways maybe we can do it on a local basis, you become very, very strong very quickly. And that's exactly what the other side don't want, which is why every single little burgeoning movement of good thought, of attitude, they send their agents in and squash them. But seeing as how they're going to do that anyway,
to ridicule them, like Eric said, that's humor and mocking them. Mocking the enemy really has an effect when it comes down to it. I mean,
it does.
You look at it, especially when it comes to the innocent. You can make someone innocent into the most evil person in the world just by mocking them enough.
Yeah.
Do you remember Hogan's Heroes, where they're taking the mickey out of the Germans?
Yes.
It's always making the German people look stupid and idiotic. That's
Yeah.
all they did.
Like make the dad, the patriarch of the family, look like an idiot, and the bright wisdom, all the children go to, and the children are the boss. She lets them run rough, wild.
But did you know that during World War II, twice as many UK troops deserted than Americans? It was 50,000 Americans deserted from the forces, yet 100,000 UK troops deserted. Double. Quite
Is that
interesting,
right?
that, isn't it?
That is, yeah.
Yes.
That is very
Yes.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
I know that
Maybe
I think it's John
Maybe because they were closer to home.
Well, I think there was
may
also
be
an
that.
understanding that they were fighting the wrong people. There's an incident
But
that's
also-
mentioned in a Liverpool cinema about 1950 odd or early 60s. A huge house. They turned up to see something, and they were showing some documentary about Hitler and all this kind of stuff. And it was supposed to be a negative thing, but there were people stood up in the audience going, "We want a bit of that." Literally, I've forgotten whether I've got the anecdote somewhere. There's a report that people said, why? Because they could see that they were clean streets. I mean, these seem like small things, but they're not. All of these things that you associate with the civilized space are the most important things. It's actually the little things that they attack us on and undermine you on and wear you out on. And it's those things that I think that if we connect only with our own type, we can do it. Of course, I'm now for the prison cell for this. You can't talk like that. But the thought is never any far away because, as we said earlier, we have never given our consent for any of this. Now, maybe that's part of it. I know that Patriotic Alternative focus on that. They certainly did. I've seen many of their sentences, we were never asked, and this is true. We never were. So if we were to go back and had a time machine and ask everybody, we all know what the answer would be. And the argument that they use, this economic one, is, well, we need all these people to save our economy. We don't want it saving. Because it's not ours, because we don't have a stake in our economy that you keep saying is ours. Only you do, boss-type people. We don't have a stake in it. We're just meant to schlep around in it. See what word I use then.
And also,
but we are.
how many people, as I said earlier, how many people are doing work that they're cut out to do and what they want to do? And I've got a little story here, which is true. When my father was in hospital before he died, there was a woman. There's all different levels of nurses, and I don't know what level this was, but it's the lowest level. And they clear up all the poo and the sick and whatever. And and I'm not sure they are a nurse as such, but the main nurses say, okay, they walk away from someone that's puked up, and the other nurse has to go and clear it up. And I got talking to this woman who was of that low level, and she was a graphic designer. I said, well, what made you do nursing? She said, well, the job centre was going to cut off my pay if you had to take any job that come along. And she said, I've got a phobia about hospitals. She said, I can't stand this job, but it's the only one that's got around. And she was actually going to the doctor getting stress, tablets for her stress, because she hated the work so much. She was just not cut out for it. She was a qualified graphic designer, but couldn't get any work in graphic design. And because the job centre said you've got to take this job or you get your benefits stopped, which she would then go hungry and starve, she had to take the job. And she always looked like a square peg in a round hole. I felt really sorry for her. It's terrible. And so there's people in hospitals doing work they're not cut out for. So,
well, I mean, you're right. All of these things.
And they're underpaid for it on top of it.
Yeah.
So when, this thing, that the permanent sort of Band-Aid communication economically that comes out of all governments is part of the problem. Don't worry, we're going to sort it out. Whereas the actual response is, you can't sort it out. You're not in charge of the economy. But no one knows that. They all think that they are. They're going to get up. As Liz Truss, whose name I forgot earlier on the show, and thank you for the shout out to whoever reminded me of that. I think I wrote a little thing about that. As Liz Truss pointed out. Now, I don't know how much traction that's got emotionally with people. Hello, would you like to own the Bank of England? Right? This is part of the problem. It's almost like getting it going. To light a fire under people is important. But
change the rules of the banking so that the local banks could make the decisions. You don't need the whole centralized structure of a central bank that ultimately winds up in Basel.
You're right. Yes. But this is the thing. They've changed things. People go and have a school. They're trying to do a job. Now, to me, if you love what you do, you'll never work for the rest of your life, because if you like what you're doing, it's not work.
I've
because
never
you
worked,
enjoy it.
Eric. Actually, I worked for 3 years, and that was it. I've never done anything. I was talking to someone about it the other day, and they said, "Well, even if you were broke," I said, "I was broke loads. I absolutely refused to do. I'm just not. Never." Just like really stubborn about it, even if it hurts me, just will not do it. And it's that we have to hit a point where you literally go, I'm going to live my way or I'll die. When you get to that point, you become strong. I'm not saying I'm Mega Man. That's not what I'm saying at all. I have my difficulties and challenges just like everybody else, which is what drives me, because I want them removed for all of us. And I'm no doubt many people share a similar sort of thought, that that's what we're really looking to actually rebuild. But we've got a situation, people haven't identified the enemy. They don't really understand the nature of the problem that they're facing. So these things, when governments come along with a palliative, we're going to do, yay, we're going to create more jobs. Yay, why? What's the point? All of it's crap. Every last thing that they say, both the problem and the solution, is a completely irrelevant narrative. It doesn't make any difference. It never has. My entire life, it's never made any difference. You get lots of drama on the news. Oh, let's get sucked into this. Let's beat the miners up. That's going to change things. Let's shut the docks down. No, it don't make any difference at all. Now they're talking about shutting down buildings again. The focus is not on the quality of life. It's on keeping the economy going. Why? Because that's how you're scammed. So we've been turned into like drug addicts. Literally, it's exactly the same. There's no difference. You need more money next year to get the same hit this, and so does everybody else. So that usury, the interest that's sitting on all the loans permanently as a drain on the entire economy, subtly puts all of us quietly into competition with one another. We are fractured at that point, literally. We are divided at that very point. So you'd be very friendly with your mates, but then we've got to stick together to beat the other guys in the other town. Why? Why don't we just sort it all out so that we can reduce that mayhem once and for all, right down? I mean, you'll still get pockets of it. There are always going to be people that want to do bigger things. Great, don't mind. But the way it's done at the moment, it's done by committee behind closed doors, and we're never invited. And so many of the outcomes are literally not in our interest. And yet we're then told the economy's booming, and everybody goes, yay. I go, what are you going yay for? Your economy's not booming. It's not going to make a shit bit of difference to you. Never has. Never will. It's,
but the more but the more people out of work, the more the government can use them as slaves, because you can't do what you want. You've got to do what the government tell you. And that is pure communism. That's why they're destroying employment. And this is what Margaret Thatcher did. I remember when she came in, week after week, thousands and thousands and thousands of people were losing their careers and jobs and things like that. And apparently in the 1960s, you could walk from doing one job into another one if you didn't like it, and because it was booming. And she destroyed this economy deliberately. And I think it is all part of the agenda to wipe us out and just have a minimum of slaves. It's horrendous. It really is. Have you noticed also, Paul, and you might have noticed this, Patrick, once upon a time, you very rarely saw any men around during the week because everybody was working. Now, loads and loads of married couples out and about, loads of men around. Why? Because there's no bloody work. That's why. Have you noticed that, Paul or Patrick?
Yeah.
I guess I'm too busy working to notice it.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
Well, I do. I can't help but come back to it. I get distracted. Maybe these things that we're talking about, I often think this. I want to talk about them too. You can't just think about one thing, sort of like tunnel vision all the time. But my vision just always, the way I think, it always comes back to this. And it's like there have been great men in the past that have temporarily, I've mentioned this several times, put the halt on the central banking scammers. And in nearly all cases, they've been blown to bits. Assad is maybe the latest one now. He's the great. I don't know whether he's a good or a bad guy. I'm not trying to defend or attack him. All I know is they were independent and doing. It's down to them to sort out how they want to live. If they want to kill one another, let them get on with it. I don't want to kill Englishmen or Scotsmen I don't want to kill Europeans. I'm not interested in that. Why are we put into situations where that occurs? Because we don't get to make the decisions about our own life, because we are bribed, we are corrupted, we are coerced, we are forced, we are cajoled, we are threatened by imprisonment. And that's how it works. That's the system. And yeah, apparently this is freedom and democracy and we should defend it. I think not. I think it's pants. And there's always going to be friction between people. So, you know, the humor stuff is important. The humor stuff is important because it's a great way of really undermining them. I mean, Billy Silver wrote a thing here a few moments ago. Thanks for that. He says, I feel ridicule by comedy is one of the few devastating avenues available to us because it's hard for the enemy to crush or rebut legitimately without appearing inferior. Absolutely right. They look like absolute weeds when they come back and do all this. But I mean, the tactic they've been employing over the past few years is the same tactic employed during the Russian Revolution, is to ban words, to shut down conversations, to police things. This micromanagement.
Set the taboo.
Yeah, absolutely. Right at the base of your thoughts. So we can't freely express things in the way that we want because someone's, oh, you can't say that. Oh, you can't say this. Who monitors the monitors? Well, we're appointed. Well, I didn't appoint you. But of course, you've got a huge, vast number of people that are indoctrinating that system because they want to get paid at the end of the month. They don't want to lose their job either.
And it's done in the name of morality as well. If you
that
think
old
about
chestnut.
it. Because,
yeah.
Well, no, I mean, like even the the rainbow flag wavers, it's all morality. You can't, because you can't discriminate. That or race. Same with like being called a racist. It's done in the name of morality. The taboo is you can't say certain things. You can't say the truth because you might offend somebody. It becomes a matter of who, rather than offending God, you're offending a person and their sensibilities.
Yes,
whatever they may be, whatever they choose their own truth, and relativism reigns because then it's like you pick your own truth, you make your own truth. You can be as fat as you want, but if at the end of the day, you can't say anything about a fat person because they're living their truth or whatever it is. It's ridicule.
I've never said anything rude about fat people.
Well,
anyway, swiftly
I haven't either. No. I wouldn't either. I mean, I'm just giving you an example. Well,
sometimes it's encouraging.
Some people can't.
I can make a counter argument for that. There's a counter argument to everything, isn't there? If you allow people around you to get heavier and heavier and heavier, and you don't rebut them on it, you're allowing them to get into a corpulent state, which is going to reduce their lifespan. By giving them a verbal tongue lashing every now and again, which they may offend them, possibly, right? I know some people just explode and couldn't handle it at all. But you can encourage people to shift their behaviour. I don't mind myself getting kicked at what's left of my arse, if you know what I mean. Isn't that what we're trying to do? What's wrong? Isn't that a sign that someone cares for you? Or am I mad?
Well, yeah, but you can go the opposite direction and just completely ridicule somebody, and that they can't change their composure. They can't change their form suddenly. It's a gradual thing. But if you keep on them every day in a mean-spirited manner, that too can have its negative.
Well, I'm not talking. I know what you mean. I'm not talking. I don't have the energy for that either, and no one's trying to make people feel bad or whatever. But sometimes it's a bit like spare the rod, spare the child, and it's kind of true.
The discipline is lacking in most people because that's what you need is discipline and real discipline, not the stuff that's being driven out of children. And when you have that discipline, that's when you can be creative. That's when you can start doing things for yourself and things that fulfill, make you feel good about what you're doing, and you also can act in a good manner to other people as a consequence because you have the discipline to say things at the right time and to be just strong. That's how a weightlifter has to be disciplined because you can't just give up because you don't feel like it. You have to maintain structure, and these structures, they don't like people who are disciplined because they can go against these usurpers of power real easily. And the banking is another example. Is you need discipline in your finances, and you can't go out and just spend all your money on entertainment and think that you're doing it's the bank's fault. I don't have any money. It's like, well, no, you're a lot to blame because you're using your money in a prudent manner that supports yourself and your family, or you go to the casino and you waste your money. So
you're right. Yeah, well, there is that. There are
driven out
people.
of us.
There's always going to be a small minority that can't, that see that that's the way out, and maybe for a very small few. I mean, you could actually. The casino is a good example because we're living in one. It is a casino. It's not as it doesn't have all the flashing lights and ding, 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 ding. But what happens in casinos? They make a big deal out of the people that win big, that go to the slot machine and it pops out $1 million or whatever amount pours out of these things these days, right? And of course, that means you too can be a winner. Can I? Well, not really, no. What do you mean? Well, mathematically, it's not possible. It's just impossible.
Well, it's like going to a gypsy fortune teller and thinking that that's going to save, you're going to then have a clear view of how things are going to be. It's like, no, you're not. You're going to be manipulated and you're going to be taken advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the question is, what tactic does one, as an individual who thinks he might know or she might know a little bit more about what's really going on, let's just assume that that's the case for us. I'm not assuming it all the time. What tactic do you take? Is the approach, we can save all our other people? It's a very cocky thing to say, but is that an element? It certainly is an element in my thinking. You think, well, there would be a dutiful, honourable way to use my time. I'd like to play a role in that, please, whatever it may be. Or do you say, it's not possible? There's huge numbers of people that I literally am not going to be able to organise my energy or even with a team to get through to in time. Therefore, we find a redoubt, we go somewhere safer, and blah, blah, blah. But that path is the path that we've been taking for hundreds of years as a people, moving out of the Middle Eastern, the Occident and all that, up into Northern Western Europe, over to America, no more West to go into. There's no more. Right. There's nowhere else to go. According to the globe model of the Earth, or whatever it is, maybe there is. Okay. Beyond the ice wall, maybe we go there. I don't mind a bit of cold, but it seems like it seems like it's until we turn around and face it and deal with it, it's just going to harry us through infinity. It seems to me. It just seems an unavoidable thing that we are being called to confront it.
What do you think about this Syria thing? I've heard from a friend in Damascus that they're kind of in a way cheering it on because of the fact that for the past 14 years the city has been bombed constantly and they've done nothing about it. They just let it happen. And it's finally gotten to the point where it's like they can change things and they're cheering it on. And they see Assad as kind of a coward, taking the coward's way out and going off into his safety zone when they're left behind and they can't do anything about it, and then the next thing you know, you're going to have all these refugees coming into Europe because of the destruction that's going on there. It's a mess. And what do you do about it? Like, we don't, like you said, can you save everybody? Can you
no.
do those things? But that's right, because you don't have the discipline to do it.
But can you build up a thought field that people can bind onto? It's that thing that Stalin said. Yeah. What did he say? He said, thinking is way more dangerous than guns, or something like that. He said, we don't allow people to have guns, and we're certainly not going to allow them to think. Because it is that, I know it's a cliche, but that phrase, an idea whose time has come...
Not going to allow them to vote either, for that matter.
That's right. But an idea whose time has come transmits. How do you defend against an idea? Well, the way they defend against an idea is that the idea's transmission space, currently the internet, they control it, just like they control the newspapers.
They jam it just like radio.
They jam it.
Radio jamming. You're just essentially taking and you have one transmitter transmitting the truth, and then you create a more powerful transmitter and that broadcasts on that same signal and overpowers it, so no one can hear it. That's essentially what the principle behind it, and that's what the media does. When you have the printing press, which is a powerful thing, because it was a challenge to the church when they started printing out the Bible back in the day. Prior to that time, you had the church, which was spread out throughout the lands, and you could reach people through word of mouth and direct it through clergy, traveling.
Yeah. Of course, they got a bit heavy with Gutenberg once he starts printing things up, but therein is the tale, So the sort of human power structures that arise probably really in the first stages out of good intentions, become a thing unto themselves. And the idea that the individual, in this case congregants, should be allowed to self-educate is completely against the interests of the organisation they've built. So they actually then wage war, as it were, on those who at the time were seeking to read the thing in English, for example, burning them at the stake and all sorts of other things, because it's a direct threat to the control system that they thought was the best way. But it should have been evident to them that once they started killing people, it obviously wasn't the best way, because killing people to maintain a creed of peace, no. And of course, it caused it to expand. It's the thing when human beings go, I know better than the other one, and I'm going to force that on you. It's part of it, isn't it? That happens. I mean, I'm looking here at just we've touched on a lot of things monetarily here over the past year, and I will continue to do so, particularly anything new that comes into my space or things that I'm not fully aware of. But I've mentioned here before, and we'd be familiar with it, and I'm just thinking of something around which maybe the mind can get a hold of. But the Bradbury pound, which we've mentioned here before, this pound note that arose in the middle of World War I and effectively saved the British economy from the usurers. The usurers had to give up for 6 or 7 months because everything was shot to buggery with their system. But once they got the economy breathing again at a regular rate, they just stepped back in and bribed or whatever they did, coerced, threatened, so the MPs of the day, and said, we're going back to this now. But we're never asked. So, in simple terms, we are being bullied. How do we remove ourselves from the bully? Is it possible to confront the bully? Apparently not now, or not easily, without colossal resources or something like that. I mean, I just saw something today with the Reform Party. I've forgotten his name. There's some billionaire property developer, I've forgotten his name, an English guy, who's just he's switching all his money out of the Conservative Party, and he's going to put money into Reform. And they were talking to him. He said it will be a 7-figure sum. So that's what, 10 million at least, is it? Or is that 8 figures? Well, it's going to be at least $1 million or more to do it. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a lot of money anyway, but I guess in political circles it is. But what would you be expecting from a political party if you give it £1 million? I mean, why not just set up something that's really going to change things? But then, of course, you're probably going to get killed for it. It's tricky, isn't it? It is a dilemma. It's a dilemma.
Well, if you're in control of that amount of money, it makes you wonder what kind of factory or what kind of labor they employ, and are they paying them enough to take away that money from them and give it to the politicians?
Well, I guess that's one way of looking at it. I mean, I would say that they're not in control of the money unless the higher-ups in the system allow it, because they can simply just block your accounts. I mean, it's that easy. They just go,
maybe that's a good thing.
You've got 10 million in the bank, but we're not going to allow you to move it anywhere else. So what have you got in the bank? Nothing.
It's like the sanctions on Russia has only made them stronger in a way, because then they're forced to create those things that they can't get because of the sanctions domestically. And as a consequence, the standard of living is raised for everybody in that country, which I know for a fact in Russia that's the case. The standard of living in the last 10 years has gone up. And it's only increased with the whole sanctioning thing. So if you do get sanctioned, and then it's like, well, then I'm going to create my Fockbob, and we're going to run off the bank of Fockham. And why not? Because at that point, you got nothing to lose. And it's almost like you tiptoe into it, but, you dip your toe in the water, and sometimes you get shoved into the water, and you have to deal with it. And that's probably what's going to end up happening. That's not the ideal way to organize, though. So, no. Discipline. I guess we need discipline, and we lack discipline, and that's part of our problem.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I guess I see the discipline coming after something else. There's something else that needs...
Do you think that things have to get worse before they get better, or do they have to get better before they get better? That's
well, I actually don't want them to get worse, and I don't want them to get better, because both of those directions are still part of the same existing game. It's looking at the whole thing and got the entire structure of the systems that we live under have never been for our benefit. They've always said they were, but they patently are not. And Therefore, we need to go back to God's laws. You know, we've touched on it here. Of course, how we get this into practice, like the year of Jubilee. We're just going to forgive all the debts. This would, of course, mean that the news services would have nothing to talk about. Well, you know, they have an indirect subconscious interest in all this economic and political drama because there'd be nothing to talk. Imagine it just being flat dull out there. Pound's still worth £1. We only use £1. We're producing loads of food. But now people are doing really interesting things. They're doing something else.
Yeah.
What would they do?
This might not be exactly what you're looking for, but recently the Pope declared a Jubilee year where they're opening the holy doors of the cathedrals in Rome and basilicas. They do this every 50 years. Now it's like 25 years. And I think what it is to set a precedent to people to get rid of usury and forgive debts, because there's not going to be anything for us if we don't forgive our debts to other people. And we need to look at ourselves first and the people who are indebted to us and be able to do that. And if we can't do that, the wider society is not going to be able to. How can you expect that when you can't do it yourself? And we need to look to where we have control over things and be able to say, hey, I borrowed you that money. It's almost like I gave it to you. You keep it. Don't even worry about paying me back. That's kind of the attitude, that Christian attitude that we need, is when you give out a loan to somebody, it's as though you're giving them that thing that you're borrowing.
Like you do with members of your own family.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree with you. But the thing is, as Yuri Bezmenov said, if we stopped what's happening at this moment now, clicked our fingers, it would take several generations, many generations, to put right what has gone wrong. And I think that when you look at pictures of Mao's China about 30 or 40 years ago, you saw loads and loads and loads of people all dressed the same in denim. You take a picture now of a high street, and what do you see? Loads and loads of people dressed almost the same in denim. Something weird has happened. People.
Well, that's the part of any economy starts with the clothing industry, the textiles.
Yeah,
that's.
But just look, it's self-respect. People go out. I mean, you see them absolutely scruffy. I mean, for example, my neighbour, her son is currently in hospital, and she said the nurses are fat blobs, absolutely overweight, obese, walking around. And I know when my parents were in hospital, in the corridors, they had vending machines selling fizzy drinks and highly processed junk food. It's supposed to be a hospital. I mean, surely they should have fresh vegetables, fresh fruit and fresh food there. What the hell are they doing selling that for? It's bonkers. But again, nobody's saying anything about it. People just accept it. There's, what's this? It's a shame. And it's this scruffiness. And I think when you see graffiti on the walls, you see people scruffy, that is a sure sign that society is just down the drain. It's had it. It's gone. That's
I thought I was dressed quite well for today's show image, don't you think?
Well,
yeah, I look pretty good, I thought, in that. My blue serge suit was pretty good, I thought.
Yes. Yeah. And I think you look pretty dapper, Patrick, with that high collar that you've got there, and you've got black and white photograph. And, I'm in a military
on
uniform.
The StreamYard.
Yeah. That's actually my dad.
Well, obviously what we need to establish maybe is Fockham's finest tailors, don't we? See?
Yeah.
Bespoke tailors, yes.
I mean, if you're right, Patrick, if sort of the intimate connection with the economy is through clothing, and it may well be, I'd not really given it too much thought, but I guess maybe we need to go into the underpant manufacturing business, 100%
pure.
Well,
I'll give you an example. In Kenya, they used to have, they have their tribal gear, their tribal clothes, where the women make it, they spend a lot of time and detail on these things and handicrafts, doing their costume or their dress or just the way they present themselves in public. And then what ends up happening is these big cargo ships with used clothing from New Jersey set sail to Kenya, to near Kenya, and then they just dump on the Africans this used clothing from America, with silly, stupid slogans on the T-shirts. You know what I'm talking about. It's just really, the stuff Eric's talking about with the jumpsuits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and it just floods the market, and then the women leave their looms, and it's just
they leave their looms,
and then at that point they what do you got? What do you then the women go to work in the factory instead of staying at home and making clothes for their family and tending the children.
Well, Fockham started importing knickers from America. It was William Shatner started a knicker factory called Shatner Knickers, and of course over here you see they're very good because the slogan is one yank and they're down or they're off. Sorry.
I'll have a pair. Send me half a dozen, will you?
I like me Shatner knickers, they're really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll be on, for some. I don't know. I think obviously we don't have many places to go to dress well these days. I remember.
Just stay at home and dress well at home. Why not?
It's a bit odd. I often think of doing that.
Why not?
Well, here I am, chaps, on the show. You can't see me, but I've got a bow tie on that's spinning around with one of those little electric motors behind the back end of it.
Do your garden work.
My hair all slicked back, and I'm wearing a smoking jacket. Here we are. This is the voice. This is the voice of the BBC and this Fockham Broadcasting Corporation. This is the FBC. And welcome to the news. And maybe we should do that. I was thinking, Eric, today actually that this thing about comedy and humour, can't we need to write, maybe, if we could, it'd be a big workload, but I thought today, this is a 3-hour show, wouldn't it be good if in the middle of it we could have a half-hour show called Fockham Folk, or something like, I don't know what it is, Tales of Village Life. You remember that?
Yes.
There's a guy, what's it, Garrison Keillor, you'll be familiar with him, and Lake Woebegone Tales, yeah?
Yeah.
These are fabulous. Now, that was a monologue with him just reading about the recent events. It's been, what was it? It's been a quiet week. Is that what it started? It's been a quiet week in Lake Woebegone, this mythical, fictional place. Where was it? In Minnesota, was it? Or somewhere? I don't know.
Minnesota.
And it's lovely.
And they're all Lutherans. It's all Lutherans.
Bloody Lutherans everywhere. But, I just thought the whole thing about Fockham, I can't stop thinking about it because I'm sad, and sometimes you get bored about thinking all these other things. But obviously we've got, as I put in the thing, there's the hair gel I'm wearing today, or the pomade, is Fockham Fop from Trubshaws Pig Farm. You may have seen that. And if you actually were selling tins of Fockham Fop on the site, I'd buy one, even though I don't actually use hair pomade, but it's just to buy some or give it to friends at Christmas. Go, have you ever had hair pomade? This is from Trubshaws Pig Farm on the Fockham Hall estate. It's called Fockham Fop. The little things like, I don't know, am I childish? Yeah. Does it work? I don't know. I just little memorable things.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know if you were ever a smoker.
Sorry.
I don't know if you've ever been a smoker. I was briefly. I think I last had a cigarette when I was 26, and I was so sort of not into it really. I actually used to just like to buy all the different brands. I was buying it from a packet design point of view. Bit odd, really. But there's a ritual to smoking cigarettes, isn't there? Anybody's done it. We were always mystified by American cigarettes, which we used to buy, that were shipped into this tiny little newsagents where a bizarre place, I may have mentioned it before, called Moore and Gratian. It's probably not there anymore. Tiny little tobacconist next to a petrol station. You went in, they had about 300 brands of cigarettes. I'm not kidding. Everything from France, Turkey, every American cigarette, the lot. And went, wow. So I got into smoking because the idea was to buy a different one each week and see what it was like. I wasn't really a proper smoker as such. But there's that little ritual where you tear the cellophane off with the seal, and then you flip the top up and you flick the first cigarette out and you tap it, and then you've got to find your matches. All of these things, they're like little anchors that go into you. What would you call it? What's that called? It's like tactile, isn't it? Or like being slightly ADHD, the sound of it, all that kind of stuff. If we had things like that for us, I don't know what it would be, picking your nose or something with a Fockham Hall nose picker or something. Something that
Yeah.
is sort of innocent looking, but it says, I'm part of this thing. I don't know. But it's like psychological things to connect us into stuff, to glue us into things. Yeah.
We need another Vivian Stanshall. Was it Futtock's End he wrote? Well, that was that one.
Rawlinson's End.
Rawlinson's End, that was it, with Vivian Stanshall. He wrote it, I think.
Sir Henry Rawlinson. With that voice of his. It was amazing, his voice.
Well, his voice was amazing, but did you know he came from a working class background in Southend, and his mother sent him to elocution lessons. That's why he spoke like that, because he came from a rough place, apparently.
Well, he could do that. Yeah, he could do the rough voice as well. And he was the one that wrote many of the lyrics for the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, a great band, the Bonzo Dogs, the Bonzos.
Back in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, I'm the Urban Spaceman. That was one of my first records I bought. Was the I'm an Urban Spaceman.
Yeah.
And do you remember what was it now? One of the chaps from Bonzo Dog, he actually did a series on his own with the BBC. I can't remember his name, but it was brilliant. It really was. But no, we could actually write something, but it'd take a long time to do the script, and it would have to be done very quickly.
Look, if Spike Milligan could crank out an episode of The Goons every week for 15 years and go mad and be put in a lunatic asylum, you can do the same, Eric. We'll come and see you.
Why not? Yes. Mind you, the trouble is loonies are no longer loonies. I wouldn't be able to go into loonies. It's only sane people going to lunatic asylums now, not like loonies.
Yeah. Little comment here, just winding back on the chat, by the way, just jumping from Exo says, when we were talking about doing our things, says, I'm skeptical if a community along the lines we have here, i.e. the chat and everything, could function in isolation. Who'd empty the trash? Watch this point get avoided. Okay, well, we'll avoid the point then, Exo. No.
Somebody's got to do
empty the
dishes.
trash. I love trash. I love it. Oh, it's great, trash. I'm always talking to the trash men around here. I do. They're fantastic. In fact, I've got to get a bottle of whiskey for them. They're a good. They're always chirpy and everything when it's coming to take away my. It's the only thing I know that my council tax pays for. Of course, everybody's going, "You still paying council tax?" Well, yeah, I am at the moment. Of course, it's probably going up to £5,000 a week. So, they're great.
People that
they're all right.
Stock the shelves at the store.
Yeah.
You need people to stock shelves. Why? Who would do it if they didn't do it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure someone might take great joy. I mean, what they do in many supermarkets is employ old age pensioners in the shops, and they like it because in the Netherlands they got this idea where there's the checkouts. There's a slow checkout lane where they have an elderly person at the checkout who speaks to other elderly people who are lonely. So they get their shopping.
You know what?
And they sit and they just stare and it could take ages to go through the checkout. And they're renting, it's so popular, they're opening several lanes of these slow checkouts. So if you're in a hurry, you go through the fast one. But if you want to chat with someone and you're a bit lonely, you go to the slow one.
We have a store here called the Dollar General, and it's kind of like a mini Walmart, if you could imagine such a thing. Yeah, and they pop up all over.
A bit like Poundland we have over here. We've got Poundland.
So you go there and you check out, and they have 2 checkout lanes with clerk, and then they have 2 self checkout lanes. Nobody ever uses the self checkout. They're you'd rather wait in line. Mind you, it's not long lines or anything. Sometimes they're quite long, and the clerk might have a mental disorder where they can't count change back correctly or something like that. But you at least would go there over the self-checkout thing, because the self-checkout thing is just our society is, it's like they're trying to point us in that direction, but we don't want to do it, and we shouldn't do it, because we need that human interaction, or that man-to-man interaction, or woman-to-woman interaction, whatever it is.
You're right. I think it's difficult to know just how we would behave without the hidden destructive force of usury present in all of our lives. This thing about it's that our behavior is aberrated. It's not right. It's actually unsound. Like you were saying earlier, Eric, people are doing things that don't need to be done. They're working for a wage in jobs and posts created by a centralized control system. We're living under globalism right now, that they can do whatever. And so we're all becoming fearful of the central authority, which, of course, keeps running around masquerading as we're doing this for everybody's good and things are great, because we say so. But our experience is not that. It would be... I'm on for trying to experience that. I've always said I want to live in a village where people are not compelled to actually, or be forced to part with things like taxation, a thing that's completely not needed other than to control you. It's not needed to balance any books.
They justified it here for income taxes was because of the war.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have that threat,
well, they'll always find something to justify. I mean, we know over here.
You shouldn't be lending to accept to get a return is the thing. The usury in those terms, it's you shouldn't be lending to somebody for a return unless you're going to go into business with them.
Yeah, well, private usury systems are just terrible. I mean, they breed gangsterism. That's really what we've got, and that's exactly what they've bred. They've bred gangsterism. I mean, if you just have one bank, and we all own it, and someone's short of money, we just work it out. Yeah, we could, we've got a colossal economy. We've got all this food.
And
it's ridiculous that people are going hungry.
The old widow can't work anymore. You're going to treat her differently than the guy that's in his 20s that is in construction or whatever he's doing that can work.
Comment here from Aunt Sally, by the way, just going back to the smoking gig. We're just about the end of in fact, we're going to go over 3 hours here tonight. Sorry about this, but we are. Aunt Sally says, smokers are the true rebels. I think you're right, Aunt Sally. She says, I know, I used to smoke. Ooh, it's all coming out now. Gave up nearly 5 years ago, but I still go outside a pub to be with the smokers because they're great people. I was at the pub on Saturday. I don't go to pub I never go on a Saturday night, but there was a friend in town. He said, come out and have a beer. So I did. I had one. That's about as much as I can deal with these days. I'm so fey with the whole thing. And a lady came out because she had to come out. We were sat outside in this freezing garden. There was a band on. Oh, yeah, that was it. We went to 2 pubs and there was a band on in both pubs. I went, is this 1979 again? What's going on? Because it's only a tiny little town. And they're literally sort of 30 yards apart, these pubs, on opposite side of the road. It was great. The first one was too loud, but quite fun. And the second one was too loud, was an Oasis tribute band. So I got out of there. I got out of there pretty quick. Like, it was just full of blokes wearing Ben Sherman t-shirts singing along. I thought, no, this is a bit too, it's not my scene, this. We were sat outside. This lady came out. She was smoking a vape. And I went,
there you go.
Yeah, vaping.
That's right.
They've just said, apparently, my son was informing,
out of it.
Vaping is going to be banned in the UK next year. Banned, I tell you. They're setting up a new vaping. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think it's a bit goofy anyway, to be quite honest. It's probably worse than smoking. But, sorry if I've offended any vapors out there. I know people are really into it and all that kind of stuff, but it just looks so, I don't know, it just doesn't look right, does it? And I think, it's a bit daft. But there you go. They'll be setting up a new vaping enforcement police division. I might apply for it. It might be a lot of fun putting down those terrible vaping types. But, and I've mentioned before, one of the things they did with the smoking in all those halls where they gave all the presentations for the National Socialists, they banned smoking. They found that the smokers at the back were a little bit too sharp-tongued for their liking, a bit harder to reach. They were the smart asses at the back, the place where we all want to be, that kind of thing. So, anyway.
What we can do next year is, when I was at school, when it was a frosty morning, and you got all, steam coming out your mouth, used to make out we're smoking, do all the actions, and it drives the teachers mad. Put that cigarette out, boy. You're not smoking at all. So we could do that. We can make out we're vaping. We go, when you're near the police, and he ain't got one.
That's what they do now. That's what young. Yeah, go ahead.
But when you look at the regulations, sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there, but for example, in this country, there's cameras everywhere you go when you're driving, especially around towns and that. And I've been watching, there's a girl from the Netherlands who goes on a motorbike around the world, and she went from Turkey to Iraq over the border. And this was in the last day or two. And she's going along on a motorbike, and she said, I better stop. And she's on what we would call freeway or motorway. She just stops, not at a lay-by, just stops, put something away in a motorbike, then carries on. Now, in this country, you'd probably have a camera catch you, and you'd be sent a fine or something like that. And everything looks so free and easy. You could park anywhere. She goes to a bank and she parks outside the bank. There's no parking restrictions in those countries where there are here. I mean, what's it like in Wisconsin, Patrick? Have they got parking restrictions here, there, and everywhere?
In the urban areas,
Cameras?
in the university. I got one parking ticket in our state by going down to the university in Madison and parking in the wrong spot, and that's it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
It's bad over here, but the thing is, it's private companies, and if it's a private company, you can ignore the ticket because they make out they'll prosecute you, but they can't, and they'll just carry on and on and on and on until they give up in the end. And but the trouble is, if it's local council, then you've got to sort of look into it a bit more.
Yeah,
But
that's
to
like
me, it's
my
just a rip
my
off.
friend in
Right.
Russia is talking about a guy who they had those cameras. They were starting to put those up in Russia, and he got a ticket in the mail for running a red light. So he takes and he thinks he's clever, and he photocopies some rubles and sends the photocopied rubles, the photocopy of them to the ticket agency, and he gets the letter in the mail back, and on it is a pair of handcuffs that had been photocopied onto the piece of paper.
They got a good sense of humour, haven't they?
Yeah. And Sally writes, by the way, I think we better wind. We don't have to wind. It's 11:05. I mean, come on. And you all got pubs to be going to. And Sally writes, they won't ban vaping. They make too much money out of it. I guess they do. They're setting it up so that they can tax it like they did smokes. Probably yes. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Some places. Sorry, carry on.
No.
Sorry.
Please, Eric, jump in there.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that there's, I'm not sure if it's Singapore or Malaya, but one of those two. It's illegal to break wind in certain areas. They've actually got.
And here again, it's the
the
kosher taboos they're bringing in. It's just to make it seem, to give greater authority over to them. It's all it is.
Yeah. So how do they know you're breaking wind? I mean, do they have sniffer dogs or something going along? Oh, you just let one
Well,
go.
they have an authority for that. Yeah, the fart cop.
Imagine you going for a job. Have you got a sense of smell? Yeah. They used to have litter wardens in local towns or where I live, who walked around with cameras and would photograph people dropping litter and apprehend them and fine them. I haven't heard of it since. That was about a couple of years ago, and since the lockdown, I don't think they've returned. So I don't know what's happened there. They were paid for by the local council, so strange, But you used to see them wandering around with their camera on their stump.
Well, they had
on their
COVID
chest.
cops over in Minnesota going for
Really?
a while there. Yeah. You see your neighbor breaking the curfew or whatever
we
they
had
had
that.
going. Yeah.
We had that, yeah. And they had pamphlets in the local council about it, where if you see someone having a party and that type of thing,
Oh, we've got the grandchildren of the Bolsheviks running things. So what do you expect?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I think what we have to expect now is a wind down to the show. What do you think? I think we probably
let's
do
wind
that.
it down.
It's
Paul.
been
Well,
good. It's always best at the end, and you go, I don't want to go, and then you drag it on and all that kind of stuff. A couple of things here. I just want to mention something from America First, PHL, because I'm going to do a show on nicotine. He says, probably in the new year, for all sorts of incredibly naughty reasons. Nicotine, he writes, or she writes, is proven to protect our brains from spike proteins that spike the immune system cells, allowing sick cells to enter. Eat your nicotine, lol. Well, America First, PHL, that's what I do. Sometimes when I'm choking in the broadcast, it's because I've got nicotine running around in my system. And whatever other people may think, I'm completely biased for all sorts of reasons, which will become obvious next year. But I love it. I have to tell you. It's absolutely
I've
fantastic.
been looking into it. I've been looking into it. I was talking to I went to see Miles yesterday, and we were talking about it. And he's saying that with smoking, it's the tar, which is bad, not the nicotine.
That's right.
It's the tar that turns you off. And also the other stuff that they put in the cigarettes to make them addictive. Because they do put loads of other stuff in other than tobacco. And that is the most dangerous thing. But nicotine on its own, yeah, it's okay. The only downside is it can be addictive. But then so is tea, and so is coffee, and so is breathing. Did you know that if you try and stop breathing, you're addicted. You're going to have to take another breath. That's the thing. But by the way, before we go, did you know that my granddad was dragged off by the Bolsheviks? It certainly made his eyes water.
Did he? No.
Yes.
Well, the nicotine is really interesting. Dr. Brian Ardis has been the communicating champion of this over the past few years, and I've watched most of his stuff. And it took a little bit of time for me to come around to that way of thinking, but I think there's a lot in it. I mean, particularly as it's a naturally occurring thing in many vegetables, particularly the nightshades, which you're warned off of. And so it occurs in peppers. Potatoes have got quite a bit. Aubergines, you call them eggplants, I think, out in your neck of the woods, Patrick.
Yeah.
They're high in them, and they're very good for you, I would suggest. And there may be some spurious, excessive claims have been made, but overall, all I can tell you is I do think more clearly. I think I do, although this show might not be testament to that at times. I grant you that, but I do, and I feel calmer with all sorts of things. And although it is obviously classed as being addictive, I am with Brian Ardis on this. I don't experience it as that at all. I think cigarette smoking is addictive. One of the things he talked about was when they went to the light cigarettes in the 70s and people wanted a bigger hit, they supplied the bigger hit by putting pyrazines into the manufacturing process, which is a type of sugar. And the sugar you're breathing in, and that is probably the primary agent that causes cancers and other things that are strongly associated with smoking, of which I don't doubt. I'm not denying that or saying that get smoking again. But there's so many fascinating things about it historically. I think I mentioned to you, Eric, this thing about Red Indians. Ardis talks about the Red Indians who are champions or were champions of tobacco, obviously very high in nicotine. And when they were taking their capital, as it were, literally their cows and horses after the Spaniards had brought them to America across the plains, their animals would often be bitten by venomous snakes. And the first thing that they would do is they would strap a tobacco poultice on the bite wound, on the open wound, to get the juice going into the bloodstream. And more often than not, according to him, you would have to do more research, but they did it for a reason. The nicotine would stop the venom killing the animal, which is pretty important because it's probably worth a lot to them in terms of their livelihood or, being able to get on the back of the horse and carry on. So, so there's a culture of that. And we've got Walter Raleigh, I suppose, to blame for bringing tobacco back here and getting the whole thing going. But the other signal to me about it is that there is this movement amongst Canada, America, here, the UK, Australia and New Zealand. This was under Sunak in the earlier part of this year, forming some kind of an agreement to ban nicotine from their countries entirely by 2030. And I would suggest that this is because it does interfere with their vaccine killing program, and it's naturally occurring, and there are no bad side effects with it. So why not do it? And it's relatively inexpensive. So
I know years ago they were trying to say that nicotine was causing honeybee population to become, because of the pesticides that were using nicotine supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
They use that as a reason. I don't know if that how that flies or not, but it's if they're going to ban it, there's obviously something good about it.
Well, I just think you watch what they're trying to stop and you go, right, I'm having some of that.
Yeah, exactly. Do the
They're
opposite.
just like an advert to me. Whatever they want, I'm doing the opposite. That's dumb, is it? I'm going to be 90% right. It's just so simple rule of thumb. It's like with the news. They're lying all the time. You go, well, they're not lying all the time. No, but I can't be bothered to work out the 10% of the time when they're telling the truth. It's just too hard basket. I've got better things. I've got to go to the toilet and things and do the washing up. Can't sit watching this tripe all day. So they're wrong about everything, and you're already 90% right. So there's a good shot. Today's tip of the day is like a Viz tip. Today's top tips. Just say that they're wrong about everything. They generally are. So.
Here's a tip: read a book.
Yeah, that's right. And also, more people.
Which one though, Patrick? Which book?
A good one.
Sorry, Eric.
That's okay. More people have been killed by their own governments than all the wars put together.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Or by smoking.
When you look at it.
Or by smoking.
Well.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know.
But when you look at the First World War generation, a lot of them lived to 100. The survivors, of course, and they smoked like chimneys to a right old age. So, and that's the thing: we're not increasing the age, people, their generation that reaching 100, say in the early to mid 70s, there's not so many people reaching 100 now. Have you noticed?
I also read that a lot of the Third Reich, the fundraising that they did was through cigarette manufacturing and sales. It's a substantial amount.
And what about the crushing loss to the cigarette card collectors? Remember cigarette cards? They were fun, weren't they? Collect all the, I don't know.
Crimea,
you have baseball players they used to have them with cigarettes, W.O. Wills or something, caps and full strength, images of the English cricket team from 1905 and stuff like this. Lovely bits, all covered in tobacco. Yeah, great.
I know that Crimea was where they were getting most of their tobacco in Germany during the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But Hitler was against smoking, wasn't he? He tried. He
might have been.
Stop smoking.
I suppose, but Goebbels was definitely for smoking because it was financing a lot of the propaganda ministry.
I didn't know that.
Well, I actually, I can't end the show.
Just like
right?
here, just like America, the smoking. You listen to those old commercials. They were sponsoring everything. All the propaganda was sponsored by Camel cigarettes. 9 in 10 doctors approve.
The delicious red hot Camels. Yeah, I love those adverts. Doctors say smoking Camels. It's just a great line, isn't it? Oh, I like to smoke a Camel. So smoked Camel and
they
chips.
They were getting tons of money from it. I mean,
good.
And they don't want that happening. They don't want small movements financing.
I know. Art film's crap in one regard. With regard to in the past, right? Films didn't have mobile phones in them, right? So you always used to get these scenes where Humphrey Bogart would have to go into a pay booth with his coins and all that kind of stuff, be smoking a cigarette. All these scenes have been lost. Now people just get a little beep. No one's smoking. It's dull as ditch water. I just love all the old stuff. It's just more clunky, more. I'm an analog guy. Yeah, I like the analog world. The digital world is now dull, boring, and plastic, and it's just no good. Very, very silly. Actually, Aunt Sally put a post in here. She says, I have a friend with Alzheimer's since he was 65. He was a smoker for most of his life and has switched to vaping after that. And to which America First says vaping is so bad. Well, my wife suffers from a similar condition, and that's why I've got into the nicotine. So this may be a spurious thing to say, but Brian Ardis talked about a report, and I did find it, but not fully. Houston University in 2015 or 16, 15 I think it was, they took 30 patients suffering from Parkinson's, dementia, and Alzheimer's, all basically caused by the same malfunctioning of the chemistry in the brain. It's a thing called tangles, I think, that build up. It's like a protein. You can't clear it out of your head. And it basically impairs the electrical function of the brain. And this is why it's this sort of, pain in the arse, as it were, or pain in the head. Anyway, what they did, Patrick, is that they took them and they put them all on 22 milligrams of nicotine a day. Through patches, I think, at the time, 22 milligrams of nicotine a day. And they did it for 2 years, which is quite a while. And according to Ardis, I'm just repeating what I heard, all of them lost all of their symptoms after 2 years because of nicotine.
And that's probably why they ban it. And the cunning of reason is they ban cigarettes, and then you come up with vaping as an alternative. That's what happened. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the fact of the matter that they banned tobacco in all the public places, and they made it impossible to get. And people know there's a benefit to it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. It wouldn't feel good. It's like eating. Eating feels good. There's a reason for it because your body knows that it's getting some sustenance from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it only makes sense that they come up with something like vaping or patches or lozenges or whatever you do with it.
Well, I think they're different. I think the patches and the lozenges are different. I think the vaping is just well, I'm biased completely, but yeah, they are completely. The patches, I think, the idea is to get the patches. I get a lot of things from people who are using patches, and the patches, you've got to get the ones with the least amount of crap in them. They still have other chemicals that they put into the patch and into the pouch and all this kind of stuff. The lozenges that I use have got none of that. Absolutely zero. Anyway, I'm going to do a thing about it. It'll be almost like an infomercial in the early part of next year. Because you know how all those shows in the States get sponsored by something. Well, I'm hoping that this one will. I know it's a relatively small audience and it won't appeal probably to hardly anybody from it. But I thought it looks good. And we might just do some adverts and stuff like that.
Well, you might even draw an audience from advertising a product like that.
Yeah, maybe.
And an advertising place in Fockham Hall. Was it Fockham Hall Times? That's marked for the newspaper. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it now, like a sort of Humphrey Bogart character. Advertising these lozenges.
Well, it's like any of these things, these farming products, handicrafts that people have, that they're their little hobbies or their trade, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah,
we need places for them to advertise in the marketplace, because people get kicked out of the marketplace, they get debanked, and we need something to be there for when those people leave.
Well, I think doing commercial things is good. Because it is it's a palliative. It can be. I mean, it's not if it's going bad. You also learn about the vast bureaucracy that's literally stifling true get up and go-ness. England, of course, is completely retarded in comparison to America.
That's why we need the fearless leaders to do something about it.
Yeah. So we'll do that next.
People that books. But the big problem is we've got a generation of dorks. I mean, if you imagine the generation of about 50 years ago, if they could look forward and see the dorks that are in power now, it's frightening. They're thick as two short planks. And we've read that deliberately. Yeah. But,
I think we're coming to a close. I'm finally going to close out tonight's show. We've overrun by 20 minutes. Ridiculous. This is the longest show I've ever done. But, of course, I'm fueled by nicotine, so I could talk probably for another 8 hours, to be quite honest.
I just want to say before I go, on Saturday at midnight UK time, I am filling in for Frederick C. Blackburn's show on RepublicBroadcastingNetwork.com.
Cool. That's an hour, isn't it,
Excellent.
Patrick? Yeah?
Yes, and Maleficus Scott said he would come in and be my co-host.
Oh, he's such a tart.
So
I love you, Maleficus, he said
calls.
pathetically, not really meaning any of that. No, he's a great guy. He's good. Oh, well, that's fantastic. What will I be doing at midnight on Saturday? I don't know. If I remember, I'll try and tune in. Yeah, I'll try and pick it up. Why not? That'd be cool.
Will it be recorded? Can you hear it after?
Yeah, there'll be a recording of it. I'll post it in the Fockham chat and Telegram.
Oh, if you could please, because very important, because this will be headline Fockham news, of course. So we need people to listen into it.
Definitely, I'll get it over to you.
In that. Excellent, thanks, Patrick.
Cool.
And thanks for all the postings you put in Fockham.
Oh, you're welcome.
Chat.
Oh no, I like doing that stuff. Thank you.
Nicotine junkies are us. That's me, XO. You betcha. Absolutely. Yeah. It's tops.
Maybe me soon.
You'll find out. You'll find out. It's absolutely. I'm completely biased for all sorts of reasons, but which are probably obvious to people with a brain, and I know most of you do have one. But it's a very interesting development, and I'd love to get Ardis on. I don't have any connection. I'd love to have a chat with him. It's great. I mean, some of the tales he tells about the recovery, because he came to the fore because of it using it to combat COVID, which is to do with venom. He traced it back to snakes.
Find his site, and
yeah. He's great. I mean, he's on all the big places now. So this is still a little sort of place. We're still a little place. I'm okay with that, but maybe we might get a little bit bigger. We get a new scout.
What are you talking about? You were on with Jeff Rentz not that long ago. That's the guy that got Alex Jones started. So you're not.
We'll get there. It's okay. It's for England, isn't it, Eric? It's for England.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's for Fockham.
It's for Fockham.
It's for Fockham.
Hang on, it's for Yorkshire. Then it's for Fockham. Just a minute. We'll have to declare war on Fockham from Yorkshire. That'll be good. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should start having inter-county wars again. And they'll all go, well, they're all fighting. Yeah, great. Come on. And then they won't be able to run government.
Hang on.
What do you think?
But Fockham is part of Yorkshire. It's just there's a 200-mile bit gap in between, that's all.
And Are you talking about the Yorkshire Fockham corridor, a bit like the Danzig corridor? Is that what you're talking about?
That's right. And of course, where Patrick is declared independence, so he's a part of Fockham as well. Even though there's about 3,000 miles of ocean in between and a bit of land as well for a couple of thousand miles, it can still be Fockham. You see, wherever you are in the world, you can declare the sun will never set on the Fockham Empire. So there we go.
This is good. This is really good. You've reminded me to mention something else as well here right at the tail end of proceedings. Mike, the bowler-hatted farmer up in Suffolk, yeah?
Yes. He's on the show occasionally.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy. I love what they're doing and everything. It's fantastic. We did a lot of raw milk chat. Raw milk's been mentioned here. We glug it down here. It's fantastic. I saw something about raw milk the other day. You leave it, you can drink it after 2 weeks, but by then it's actually yogurt. Somebody was explaining what happens to it. It's still good for you after 2 weeks.
I saw that.
Yeah, do you see that?
I saw that because the trouble is I don't particularly fancy, I go about once a month to the farm because it's a 30-mile round trip, 15 miles there. And I just shove it in the fridge, and I didn't realise you're killing all the goodness and the good bacteria while shoving it in the freezer.
Yeah.
In the freezer?
Yeah, you just... Oh, it's fantastic. You know what? The amount of cream on the top of it is like... it's amazing. I opened a bottle up the other day, and my dad used to nick all the cream off the top of the milk bottle.
Hey, you got to start making butter.
What, now? It's 11 o'clock at night. Oh, but okay, I ain't got a churn.
Better now than never.
You can also make cheese with using vinegar. Apple cider
vinegar. That's one way.
Is that one of the one of the specialist Fockham cheeses that you're talking about?
It is. Yes.
Vinegar cheese.
Vinegar cheese.
Oh, I could talk about cheese a lot. I really could.
Farmer's cheese, they call it. We call it farmer's cheese.
Anyway,
no, it's called postman's sock. Actually, it's actually you put it into a postman's sock. It's got that sort of.
That's lovely. It's got particularly arresting aroma, has it, Eric? I like that. Fantastic. Listen, Mike. Right? Here's an idea. I'm just throwing it out to everybody that's still here. Huge numbers, of course, still listening way beyond their bedtime, which is very, very good. I like the idea of a Fockham festival next year in 2025. Maybe on Mike's farm.
Fockham
we need the Fockham festival. We were talking about the other day. So get a Fockham flag up. We could even issue Fockham event passports to be kept for life as memorabilia. All this guff, right? It's a branding exercise. The reason they call it branding, it permanently stays in the head.
You should. You need some merch. We
need some merch. We're going to go merchy next year, everybody. I expect you all to get your hands in your pockets and make me rich.
At least a coffee mug with Fockham.
If it works for Alex Jones, it'll work for me. Yeah.
Well, that's a good idea, isn't it? He's got a steam engine there. He's got everything. So, it's marvellous. Up on his farm. And, yes, Fockham Hall. And also, we'd have to get the newspaper ready. Fockham Hall
and Lord and Lady Fockham could open it, and they could be, I don't know, the cutting of a noose or something like that. And we could actually run the radio station from it live on site for the weekend, if it was a weekend gig. And everybody would have to bring sleeping bags or, of course, book into the Fockham Hall hotels. But they're very pricey, I understand. But maybe there could be a reduction in rates that night. And we could just make the whole event up. Let's just make it up. That's what we have to do. Just make it up.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And they can actually push the pigs out the pigsty, and they can stay in the pigsty.
Yep.
I mean, the smell, I think people say, what about the smell? I think the pigs will get used to it, actually. Sorry.
So look, Aunt Sally would go to a Fockham festival, so that's 3 of us, Eric. It's already a crowd.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. And you could have equivalent in Wisconsin if you wanted, Patrick.
Yeah.
Aunt Sally's got her own tent. Wow.
So
actually, we had our own tent. My son just took it and destroyed it at a festival last year. It was a family tent. He said, Dad, actually, they put it up in the garden. They found all these holes. They tested it before they went. I said, you better test it because it'd been up in the loft, for a bit. Wonderful tent, though. Great. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a ricklay, a French ricklay, which is cotton, must be at least 50 years old.
Yeah. Well, I'm really on for this. I'm serious. Although it's delivered in a kind of semi-serious way, a Fockham festival, if that's what we were going to call it, and to develop all this branding around what we're doing, could be just the kind of sort of, you see, there's a power in it because it's quite innocent, but people sort of glom onto it or they glue themselves to it in a way. And then, really we should just check. Everything should be about Fockham. I honestly, it's like a parallel universe, and everybody in this parallel universe is actually real. And in it, we act as if we're really in the England that we want to live in. Of course, we're going to rename it Fockham, I guess, in due course. But that's for later on down the line.
Steampunk.
Yeah,
You'd be like steampunk with sort of top hats with binocular things on them, and you know, ladies dressed in Victorian stuff. You know, I think that would work. He's got a steam engine as well, which would actually fit right
I love
in
that.
with it.
I love that steampunk stuff. What is that all about? It's something to just do with steam engines. I don't know. It's all this old analog world.
I love it.
It's human. You connect to it. I mean, if Fred Dibner was still alive, we could get him along to open it up. I mean, he said that great thing, didn't he? He said, the world was built by men in overalls and destroyed by men in suits. Spot on.
Correct.
Spot on, Fred. Great bloke. Amazing. No, I really would go. And Sally, serious, me too. Anybody out there that knows about there'll be a lot of work. Really, there will, right? But if you could get a date set up now, we could start promoting it right through the year. That would give time for the spies to join up. I want them to come because we could do a conference for all the infiltrators. There should be an infiltrators tent, and we say welcome. You know, all you sad losers that are working for the other side. But
have it the first week in June. That's a good time of year.
Is it? We'd have to give it some thought. It's a bit cold over. Yeah. It'd be still snowing over here, mate. Or raining a hoolie. It'd be raining and everything. I don't know what his weather. He'd know his weather better than us. Do you think he'd be on for it?
July. I think he'd be up for it. Yeah, positive. Because let's face it, you have his shop there and everything like that. And steampunk. I mean, he's already there. He's got his bowler hat, hasn't he?
Hey, yeah.
So he's got a bowler hat. Yeah.
Well, we could all wear bowler hats, and then we could all act like Droods from Clockwork Orange.
Then the first week of July. It's still, summer, peak of summer right there.
I'm quite impressed with this, Patrick, because you're not even coming. Or are you?
I'll have my own. I'll have my own.
What, you'll do a parallel one on the same day, and then we could link it by satellite feed.
Why not?
Yeah.
Intercontinental Ballistic Fockham Festival.
That's right. And of course, because it's a separate country, it doesn't come under the rules and regulations of Great Britain because it's a separate country. And the same with you, Patrick. It doesn't come under the rules and regulations of the USA because it's a separate country. Fockham is separate.
That's right.
Well, the entry fee could be that you could get a Fockham passport. Can't we do that?
I'd love them. Would be you pay what you feel it's worth.
Three or £400 each.
Yeah.
There you go.
Seriously, if you put a premium price on it, it does a different thing. Anyway, we're talking tactics now about manipulating our audience, which is always good fun, I think. But yes. And
Bobs as well.
Yeah, I'm coming in my Rolls Royce as well. I'm going to have to do that. Or maybe private jet. Maybe I could drop in.
There you
free
go.
fall by parachute. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Do the Fock Bob that you can spend at the Fockham Fest.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've got to do some Fock dollars as well because we've got Fock Bobs. We've got to do them in the dollar style as well. And trouble is, you can be a bit more creative with the British currency because they have different characters on them. Whereas dollars, they have the same bloke all the time, don't they? They won't have.
They have
Trump
different
on there,
presidents, actually, Eric. They do have different ones.
No.
Oh, they used to have
Depends
different
on
presidents.
the
Yeah, they have them. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. Well, we could put some really good things. I'm sure you already have with the Fock Bobs. You could put
Yeah.
I don't know, Zebedee could go on it, couldn't he? And there'd be a blue P, and you could have a one that's worth half a p and put Keir Starmer on it or something, which is absolutely worthless.
Yeah.
What was that thing
he looks
about?
like the sort,
Yeah.
well, he looks like the sort of man that would wet his knickers, doesn't he? He always just looks to me.
And
he would
Eric,
just
you
wet
could do
himself.
you could do a stand-up comedy routine in the main tent. Come on. It'd be fantastic. It's the Von Essex show. He's come a long way to be with you tonight. He's a lovely fella. He's all the way. This is him, Mr. Fockham himself. Is Eric Von? Come on, I can just see it. It'd be great. Like a working men's
We
club.
could call, we could call
Emerald
it
Club.
Eric,
It'd be the Fockham Club.
Yeah.
well, would it be Eric as a stand-up? That would be an interesting title, wouldn't it?
Mm.
No,
Eric
as a
stand-up.
stand-up. What else? We could put it onto an old record. Because
Well, America First wants to come. Look at this. It says, can I go camping with like-minded people? Of course you can. My tent goes off my SUV. Come on, get on over. Maybe we could import thousands of Americans for the event and absolutely just overtake it. Yeah. Make it an international event.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yes, I know we could actually
We've got.
good idea.
I'd just love to be one of those Northern Working Men Club's compares. He's come a long way to be with you. He's a lovely fella. He's great. He's grand. He's very funny. He was here only 3 months ago. All that kind of stuff. It's absolute blather. I love it. It's complete blather. And we could buy vegetables. And we could play Spot the Vegetable, which of course would be one of the members of the attendees. Who's the most stupid person?
Yeah.
We could have some really insulting competitions. It could be wonderful. But I like the idea of a radio tent. We could just go live 24/7, and anybody that's there could just get behind the mic and talk for 10 minutes and just tell them who you are. It doesn't matter. It'd be great. Really loose as a goose stuff. Be fab.
Welly throwing competition. That's what they had with the goons, wasn't it? A welly throwing competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're getting carried up. So the big question is this all talk and no trousers? There's a possibility.
It might be, yes. Actually, what about homemade beer? That would go good. So nothing bought. It has to be homemade beer. So,
well, we got long enough.
Yeah,
I keep thinking August, late July, August, or something like that. But then maybe people still go on these things called holidays. I haven't seen one of those for about 15 years, a holiday. I have no idea what they are. This would be my day. My main concern, though, is that... actually, I've just realised this would be my coming out party because no one knows what I look like. So it's terrible. So I'd probably have to get one of those rubber masks and look like somebody else. No, I wouldn't. I'd turn up. It'd be great. It'll be good. Then I could start using a webcam after that because my cover would be blown. I don't even know why I've got one, to be quite honest. It's just a bad habit that's been going on for years. But yeah. Okay, look at the bloody time.
On the bike.
Yeah.
Anyway, we better go because I've got a bed waiting for me.
Yeah. Me too. Look, guys, it's been absolutely brilliant. It's been absolutely, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to play out with a song here called... what is this song? It's a lovely song made by a chap. Keith Mansfield. Now, there's a good name for you. Keith Mansfield. This is called Soul Thing. It's from the 1960s. One of those groovy, keyboardy type orchestral. He used to write... Nice. He wrote the Grandstand theme, did Keith Mansfield. Right.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, he's quite nice, this. So listen, everybody, fantastic for staying up so late with us. It's way past Eric's bedtime, so it must be way past mine too, I guess. We'll be back again at the same time next week for more hilarious fun. And think about the festival. Seriously, we can make this sort of conversation a bit more action-driven. I love it. I want to go to a party. I don't go out much anymore, And maybe we could have a ball as well. And can we get a big ball? I'm really getting carried away. I want to do everything in one day, but we won't be able to do that. Those of you with Rolls Royces, please come in them. That'll be probably everybody, I guess, all rocking up in your rollers. So that'd be good. And maybe we could get a Shawadi. We could get a Shawadi imitation band to turn up, and then we could all leave very, very quickly. Shawadi was mentioned earlier in the show, and I cringed inwardly very, very much when it came up. So there we go. So cool. All right, brilliant. I'm going to wrap it up. Eric, Patrick, fantastic. I'll hopefully see you guys the same time next week, and see all you wonderful rumblers and grumblers out there. And think about that festival idea. I think it's a cool idea. It's bloody obvious, but it's going to require some grunt and organisation. Yeah. I mean, we could just put a site up for it and just, but then you're going to have everybody's dog coming. But maybe that's what we want. Better speak to Mike and see what the capacity would be. And then the tickets could be bid for. The latest ticket now, £8,000 more than an Oasis ticket. Everybody wants to go to the Fockham Festival. Why not? Yeah, I would gladly sell my house and all its possessions to go to the Fockham Festival, and I did. So cool. All right, brilliant. And people will talk about it for minutes to come, so that would be good. All right, wonderful. I'm going to play it with us, Patrick. Lots of love and all that kind of stuff. And to you, Eric. I know it's not too manly, but you know what I mean. Jolly good stuff. You know what I mean, and all that kind of stuff. I am from up north. And keep good. Keep good, everyone out there. Everyone that's contributed into the chat, fantastic. Love the lot of you. And we're not far away from that time of the year. And this song's got nothing to do with that. But this is Keith Mansfield and Soul Thing. Ciao for now, everyone. See you all next week. Bye now.
Good night.
Ciao, ciao.
That's your lot, everyone. Go on, bugger off. See you all next week. Bye now.